The views expressed in this show do not necessarily reflect those of the Armenian Council for Truth in Journalism or any other TMI affiliate.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We got a special show for you today. It's not on a scheduled appearance. It's actually, I don't want to say in celebration. That sounded bad, but in remembrance of 9/11. And it's going to be kind of an introspect. So I brought on becoming a close friend of mine. But he's also stationed in New York. And so he's going to offer a very unique perspective on all of my crazy conspiracies that I've witnessed for 20 years now from a distance. So maybe he'll be able to enlighten me on a few ideas that I may or may not have. And so on this show, what I basically have tried to do is to take a historical, contextualized viewpoint of current events and to see if they have any ties, to see if there is a conspiracy going on. Because to me, it seems like there's something emerging. And one of those key pivotal moments of the current situation that we have going on right now is definitely 9/11. 9/11 in 2001. And here we are approaching the 20th year anniversary. And this is going to be the first year, I think in 19 years, that we don't have any kind of memorial or anything like that. It almost seems as if coronavirus is now supplanting the 9/11 tragedy that really did change America for the better or for the worse. Without further ado, I don't want to postpone the inevitable here too long. I do want to bring my friend on and get his opinion on all this. But before I do that, he's got a really cool event going on. I mean, this guy is one of the original Occupy Wall Street organizers. So we'll get into a little bit of that too. But mostly, I'm just gonna try to get him off key on some of my crazy conspiracy theories on 9/11. But anyways, back to, his baby is Wall Street, and he lives right there. So it's got to be an ominous feeling, a presence, if you will. And so his latest organization, his latest demonstration, if you will, is going to be an event called Rally at the Fed. And so he wants you to come out there and support on September 17th. But instead of me telling, I'm going to go ahead and play a little clip where he says it all.
Cool. Whoa, hey, it's all me. Yeah, thank you. So I'm doing another demo, my latest demonstration at the New York City Federal Reserve for a Green New Deal. And it's not going to be a huge demonstration. It's not going to be big enough, unfortunately, but it's there's gonna be a few people there for the 9-year anniversary of Occupy Wall Street. And this is all on September 17th, week and a half away, I believe. And yeah, just trying to raise awareness about the Federal Reserve, and more importantly about the solution to the Federal Reserve, the National Emergency Employment Defense Act. And I'm working on raising awareness for this legislation with a group called the Alliance for Just Money. This is a national group. We have members from other countries as well. And they were meeting online on Zoom for months before the COVID made Zoom cool. So these are like the policy experts I work with. And I focus more on the direct action, like actually trying to get people out in front of the Fed. And so we're doing another demonstration this 9-year anniversary of Occupy, and hopefully this will be a launch pad for an even bigger demonstration. Hopefully on December 23rd on the anniversary of the Fed. I think it's the 107th anniversary. 7th, I can't count that well, especially now when I'm this side. But yeah, so this is obviously really important. I don't need to tell Lou, but for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, you don't really understand capitalism if you don't understand the Federal Reserve, what it is, how it creates money out of debt. And I mean, the only thing keeping things from getting better right now is the Fed. I mean, the stock market, most major companies, the entire oil industry, I understand, they're all broke. They're not making any money. And the only thing keeping them propped up is the Federal Reserve creating money out of nothing, backed up by our tax dollars. And this is what's keeping the too big to fail from, the too big to fail banks on Wall Street from failing, and from the creative destruction that we need to create our Green New Deal. So the way out of this is to nationalize the Fed, to outlaw fractional reserve lending, so these banks can't just create money out of loans indefinitely and give it to companies to make various weapons and bad investments with. And from now on, money is going to get spent into existence directly on vital infrastructure, on the green new infrastructure, and all the jobs that go along with that, on universal housing, universal education, universal basic guaranteed income, and debt relief, any kind of student, medical, credit card, housing debt gone. And this bill is just a template. There's more that could and should be written into the bill. Reparations for descendants of colonialism or slavery could be written in. Universal veterinary medicine, something I'd like to see written in. There's a lot more we could do. So I'm going to be out in front of the New York City Fed on September 17th, live streaming, talking about this, trying to raise awareness about this, and trying to get people to call from home their Congress reps while they're out there live streaming to get Congress to start to be aware of this bill. And I'm hoping if I get a few dozen calls from a few different people all across the country, maybe a few different Congress reps, be like, "Yo, what the hell? Did you hear about this thing?" Just to get them talking. So, and we'll take.
And yeah, so he goes on and plugs the demonstration pretty well further, but I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. Let's see. And how are you doing? And how are you doing today, Mr. Harrison?
I feel like I'm back home, man. This is my new favorite place to hang out,
dude. You're always a welcomed guest, that's for sure. And I see you smoking over there. I'm gonna have to. I told you this last time, so I picked out a color for you. I'm gonna send you over a flick wick, and we're gonna get that handled.
Cool, man. Cool.
Yeah.
This is some papaya right here. I just got today. I've never had papaya before.
Oh, nice.
Out here in New York, we get all the dregs from out west. We kind of just get like whatever slips through. So.
And they still sell it to y'all for such a high price.
Dude, you don't even want to know. I spend as much on weed every month as I do on my rent. It's retarded.
Yeah. It's so crazy. It's so crazy, but I guess that's capitalism. What do we, it's
it grows out of the ground. It should be just gardened for free. None of us should be spending anything on it. And the money that we're spending on it shouldn't have interest associated with it. but I digress.
Yeah, and we could digress for forever and ever because what I feel is like the sneaky form of fascism is this whole regulation, and another form of that against us is not allowing us to do things, to making like a plant illegal so that people can't grow it themselves. So yeah, I feel that there's a lot wrong with the way governing has progressed, and I think. Go ahead.
No, finish, please.
I was just going to say what one last thing is. I was going to say that's on us because for the last 200 years we have allowed them to distract us from what the realities were, and they've done a great job and they've accelerated this in the last 60 years with the help of television, but they've really gotten our minds completely away from what reality of being a human actually is to me.
I would argue they've been doing that for even longer than the past 100 years. Like, I mean, Zarlenga's book, of course, Law, Science, and Money, points out how they've been distracting us from the central issue of how money gets created forever. I mean, all the way back to ancient Greece.
Right.
And I mean, one of the main distraction that they keep people from focusing on the money question, the number one show that they always use is always war. I mean, like the connection between, I mean, talking about 9/11 is talking about the Fed. You're not really talking about 9/11 unless you're talking about the Fed too. I mean, you're not really talking about the Fed unless you're talking about things like 9/11 also, because war is the biggest business for the Fed. The Fed's definitely had started. I mean, I haven't followed all the money, but I mean, the amount of warfare, 19, 20 years of warfare directly with countries that, didn't even send the hijackers our way, and like, what do we have to show for that except more debt to the Fed?
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's where I really, 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 while you still can, especially now in 2020, where this, before I was taken for granted how much information was out there and how much information I was able to gather, in the last 20 years, just from the acceleration of the internet. When the internet first came out, it wasn't what it is today. It was very tedious. It was very, you had to have
AOL sound in my head right now.
Yeah, exactly. You had to have a lot of patience, and when shit interests you enough, such as porn or conspiracy, you made it happen. And the thing is like, and I say this all the time, people laugh, but the biggest driving force to internet innovation has been pornography.
That's not even that's not even debatable.
Yeah,
I mean, the high-speed downloading, the porn industry pushed they're the tech geeks that figured out what the internet was capable
of. And so when I was bitching, and then all of a sudden everything got better, I was like, oh, that's great. Oh, what's this? 2 girls in 1 cup. So it all hit me like a ton of bricks.
I was just looking at comic books online, man. I'm too PG.
That's funny. Well, no,
comic books are porn, so same difference.
Yeah, I'm not big into porn. Truth be told, I know this is about 9/11, but truth be told, I think it's been a multifaceted attack on the human psyche, and pornography and access to pornography has been one of the key elements. I never understood why pornography was so readily available when it seems to be not only the oldest profession, but also something that's super valuable. So why is it free? I always ask these questions when it comes to money. Like, why are things free and why are things not free? But anyways.
Good question. Those are the key questions. This is a $4 trillion question.
Yeah. Well, speaking of $1 trillion, there was an announcement on 9/10 that by Donald Rumsfeld that $2.3 trillion were missing from the coffers of the Pentagon, and the location. Now Pentagon obviously has 5 wings. The location of where the alleged plane struck that building, that fortress, happened to be in that exact same accounting wing of the Pentagon. So therefore, no longer were they able to backtrack a lot of the missing trillions of dollars, which is now ballooned, 20 years later to $15 trillion unaccounted for. What do you think about that?
Unbelievable. It's just too convenient. I mean, again, the question is this like just sheer incompetence or conspiracy? I mean, like
Right.
if it's when it's, I mean, even if a situation like that, I mean, like you have to start investigating a conspiracy. Like if you're a detective, like you would have to start like who are the suspects, who has the most to gain. I mean, it's like it's so shady.
Yeah.
I don't know enough to say it's a conspiracy, but you have to start like doing some sort of investigation at this point to say it's not.
Is it interesting to you that the word conspiracy now no longer implies what it used to imply, which is just a group of people working together to accomplish something? So now when you say conspiracy,
well, it's to accomplish something, but through secretive, deceptive means. It's not just like a normal group. This is like you don't know what they're doing. They make you think they're doing something else when they're really doing something.
There's a slight
different.
Okay.
Yeah, like I mean, conspiracy doesn't just mean like a bunch of people working together for the same goal. That's
it does have some negative connotation, is what you're
deception. Yeah, you don't know what you're getting into. Okay. There's obviously some sort of exploitation.
Well, let me start the introspection this way. Where were you? Where were you when 9/11 happened? Do you remember that?
I was still in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I didn't live here yet. I was before I was in sociology class, right? Should have been. It was freshman sociology in college, University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. We heard that the plane hit while we were in class, and our professor was like, "Yeah, you'll remember, you're in sociology class." And it's just like, and somehow we stumbled through the rest of the ordinary lecture on what it was, and then afterwards you run to the TVs and you see what's going on. It's like, all right, some brown people are gonna die, like.
Right.
And I mean, it was appropriate. It's right where I was supposed to be, right when that happened, because I knew, like, okay, I think you knew things were gonna be different. You knew this. I knew sociology was what it was going to help me understand this. I knew things were going to get. Everyone knew things were going to get crazy. And this is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Like all the Sikhs who aren't even Muslim, they're all looking afraid. They're all worried already.
Yeah.
It's just like stuff like that. And like, I mean, it was weird because like you felt it out here. It was weird how people out in Milwaukee were acting like it hit them personally.
Yeah. It's
how they were acting like they just lost someone. Like you saw people just it was I mean, like the really disgusting thing about it is just the way that people were using it as a break from work, just to stop working. It's like this is just like a sporting event to you. This is just a show.
I have a question.
Let me just finish by saying, like, I never had any idea 4 years later I would be in New York. Starting Occupy Wall Street, which is very much, in my eyes, a part of 9/11. I mean, like, we were in Zuccotti, which is right at ground zero, right where all the shit was. And I mean, the connections between Zuccotti and Occupy Wall Street and 9/11 are beyond I mean, there's more there that I'm even aware of. But I know that, like, I mean, I'm pretty sure just today that I heard, I got to check this out, but Marco Polo, the main occupier I follow on live stream, I think Trump, or Pence, I think there was something happening in Zuccotti to mark the anniversary of 9/11 just today in New York that I haven't even had a chance to follow up on. But I mean, like, the way that it was cleared out, I mean, they cleared that space up pretty quickly. I mean, there's wreckage. There's definitely tons of wreckage in Zuccotti from that. And then, we showed up a few years later as a response to all the warfare and all the economic upheavals. I mean, 9/11 definitely preceded the financial collapse of 2008. I mean, to me, that's part of 9/11 too. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, one of the things that people were saying in New York after Occupy Wall Street happened is like, wow, like, New York actually finally got some energy back. It's kind of getting over its depression after 9/11 and after the collapse. It was just two really hard hits back to back. And I moved here in 2000. I moved to New York City in 2005. So very much in the aftermath of 9/11, very much the hangover. It was still really fresh.
Was there anything in your head?
What's that?
Was there any concern that 9/11 would impact you still 5 years later or 4 years later?
Well, I mean, all the police presence and stuff, all the
Right.
heightened security and counterterrorism. Like, I'm worried about that as a stoner. Yeah, that was the first threat to me. Like, how are they going to use this as an excuse to start taking away my freedoms?
Right.
Like, that was a big concern.
And they didn't wait long. So I have a question because you brought up, I don't know if you were done with your point, but I had a question about what you were saying, which was interesting because you said you were in Wisconsin and all of a sudden people felt like it happened to them. And I really feel that's like the power of groupthink and that's the power of the media.
Conformity.
Yeah, conformity. Like we want to do that. You know, that's just in our nature, DNA wise.
Like the manufacturing of emotional experiences and sentimentality. And like there's something wrong with you if you're not acting like you felt it personally.
Right. So a lot of it for acting. Yeah. So my question is, okay, let's go back a week before that. What were the people's mentality? Because I know in the South and I know when I'm in the Midwest, like New York and LA, those are cities that are looked upon to scoff. They don't have the work ethic that these other places have. They don't have the hard life. Like like it seems like people rally against New York. So it was really interesting to see everybody put that to the side and then all of a sudden champion this thing that they've looked upon as an evil thing. Not necessarily evil. Maybe evil is a little too far, but it doesn't have a good.
Scary. New York is like I don't think that people hate New York. I think everyone loves it. I think everyone wishes they were. I mean, everyone in the rest of the world watches television shows about people in New York. You know, so I feel like everyone's seen Seinfeld. I mean, everyone kind of has that vibe of what it is to be a New Yorker. That working class New York experience. I mean, I think people from every other city kind of relate to that. I think that's why people like look to New York because it's at least it used to be. It used to be like a world class, working class city.
Right.
You know, like
right. I'll give you
like, and I think like to your point, yeah. I mean, like New York used to be a scarier place. I feel before 9/11. Like, I mean, people looked at New York like, oh, whoa, like you don't fuck around there. Like you don't go there. Like, mob, Brooklyn, gangs, racist type, all kinds of Central Park 5, Bernie Gatz, like just New York is all about bad news. New Yorkers are after 9/11, it's like, oh, New York, oh, so sorry, oh, we poor New Yorkers. It's just like, like the pity, the outpouring, and like well deserved, obviously. I mean, I'm not trying. There's the pain out here is real. I mean, like people out here actually did lose people. It's real for them.
Right.
Like it's insulting, seeing this outpour of fake emotion in other places when there's actual suffering, actual trauma here. It's like your little stupid pins, your little ribbons aren't doing shit. There's no justice in that. That's what Anthony, my favorite comedian, Anthony Jeselnik, would say. All that is people saying, "Hey, don't forget about me today."
Yeah. No. And Anthony Jeselnik has a great way of making you remember how silly a lot of this all is.
Definitely.
So I guess before I get on to my next one, I'll just tell you, not that you care, but I definitely remember that morning because I came in late and the first one had already hit. But then
you were in New York?
No, I was in Atlanta. I was in downtown Atlanta. Yeah, I was working at Georgia Tech. I had just graduated, and I walked in, and it was kind of surreal because him and I both like I shared an office with this guy. And so I walked in and he was already like, yo, did you see, and I was like, oh, what, so it was like a weird morning already. I sat there, we were both computer geeks. So we were like, working on coding and shit like that at the time.
Cool.
And so I loaded everything up and we were trying to get video on our computers and we had just kind of gotten a little bit of that going. So we were playing the news on one of our computers and that's when they showed the second one hit. And just the whole thing, I just remember everything kind of just went white, like where I knew something was happening because I had just gotten into conspiracy, and I had just kind of started putting a few of the pieces together. But then when this happened, I was, where I was like the vote the vote didn't seem real. You know, this was my first real vote that I got to be, you know, adult enough to vote in and participate in. And the shit seemed like a scam. Like immediately, I was like, yo, this is voting? Like, I was just like, this is fucked up. And then I was like, wait a minute, we just had the best 8 years of our lives. This is the vice president. He seems pretty competent. You're going to vote this schmuck in who we kicked his father out after 4 years? Like, none of this shit makes sense right now. Like, are you kidding me? And everybody's like, yep, let's go along to get along, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, whoa. So I was worried about that. Then all of a sudden, this shit happened. I was like, these motherfuckers are attacking us. Like, I thought they were just making it evidently confident. You know, like, I thought I was a smart kid. I was telling my family, everybody's like, looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, yo, we are under attack. You know, like, I don't know what, but this doesn't feel right. All my family was shutting me down.
And carry on.
Yeah, all my family was shutting me down. My friends were shutting me down. Like, everybody was just shutting me down. And I remember, like, I had my best friend, and I'm very particular about my friends. I always keep like one best friend. Like right now, I got like 2 female best friends, which I love them to death. You know, but it's different from having a male best friend. But anyways. My best friend growing up, like I knew his family well.
Oh man,
In the New York Times, in the New York Times, I read a story where like it made it seem like he had basically the event happened and he signed up, and so I hadn't talked to this guy probably for like 2 years at that time. So I reached out to him. I was like, dude, you signed up for this shit?
You signed up for the service?
Yeah, well, that's what the paper made it seem like in response to, because he actually enlisted the next day, like 9/12. They went there and just started interviewing people, whatever. And he just happened to be one of the guys. But I called him. He was like, no, I signed up like months ago. And if I would have known this shit happened, there's no way I would have signed up. Like, they made it seem like complete opposites. I was like, all right, now they're running propaganda. I was like, yo, what the fuck is going on? This was in like the Washington Times or the New York Times or whatever.
Fuck out of here.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, so this shit. So 9/11 has a lot of meaning to me personally.
So just this guy, he signed up months before 9/11.
Right, that just happened to be his enlisting.
On the pretext that he's not going to go to war, on the pretext that everything.
He just wanted free money for college. He was making a really smart life decision. He came in,
and then he gets dragged into like
some propaganda shit. And then I don't know if people remember, but the next one was Patrick Tillman. So I was.
Oh, was that the football player? Was that the football player?
Yes. So Patrick, Tillman, I was big into sports still at the time. And Patrick Tillman was the guy that did do that. He literally,
I was gonna say I heard about that.
And so when he did that, I was like, goddamn. So then he came back like 6 months later, and he started talking on all the little riff-raff conspiracy shit that I was listening to. He was coming on there going, "This shit's whack. This shit's bullshit." Tillman was conspiracy. Yeah, Patrick Tillman was conspiracy, and then they ended up killing him because he was gonna expose it all. Like he had a big enough name where he was going to expose it all. And then he got shot and it was like friendly fire. And the family didn't get any understanding for like 10 years solid. They just dodged him. And I was like, all right, this is fucked up, you know? So like all this shit was just like,
I didn't know that. I heard he died. I mean, like I heard he died. I didn't get that deep in this. I didn't know there's any like dissent with Tillman. That was news to me. I never heard that before, that he was gonna like say some stuff.
Yeah, no, he was that's what he was doing. He was gonna use his platform to come out and say, hey, that we're not there liberating shit, you know, like we're there protecting oil fields and this, that, and the other. And this is like months, and for this guy who they touted as an American hero to come back and say this, it would have been bad. So they killed him.
To that point, I mean, like, yeah, on Tillman, his point, and that he was saying regarding oil fields and shit. I met a guy at Occupy Wall Street at Zuccotti, just connected to drugs, Occupy Wall Street, 9/11, all of it. You know, who actually said, this is a veteran who was actually, you know, in the Middle East. And he said, yeah, I mean, we were paid to burn down cannabis fields, and we would stand armed guard for poppy fields, not just for oil, but for poppies to fuel the oxy. The fentanyl pandemic.
Yeah, think about what happened in the future, because like remember when we were down in South America, what was the prevalent drug here that everybody was getting for cheap? And then exactly. And then when we went over there, And we've used opium before, you know, against China in the Opium Wars. So I mean, like, you
Yeah.
know, we've known for a long time.
And we're gonna pay for that. Like they didn't forget about that shit.
No,
Like,
no, no. See, here's where my conspiracy freaks people out is that these people do it to themselves. Like the leaders of the world of these different cultures, they have all had to be jumped in. So like the latest one to get jumped in historically were the Russians. The Russians, you know, in 1918 or whatever, got jumped in big time. You know, they went in there and basically after they claimed their victories over the banks of America, they literally went in and just massacred all of the oligarchs that were good people. You know, like they were running a different system than us, but they were good. You know, they did what they could, you know, whatever. They had an inclusion with whatever country they were ruling. And you know, they were backing whatever actions they were taking. What came in after that was a radicalized Bolsheviks. And then all of a sudden, you know, like this Lenin fearful, this development of communism. But the thing is, like, to me, is if they had the idea of creating 3 world wars, they would know that they need enemies. So what they did is they went over there, they revolutionized these people, they created the idea of communism. They had their writers write these things, Karl Marx and the other gentleman, you know, yeah, Ingalls, and so, you know, and the thing is, like, a lot of their criticism of capitalism is spot on. It's almost as if capitalists wrote it, you know. And to me, I think that's what happened. I think they were just creating these different factions and these different ideas, and they've it's all funded by the same people. So to me, it's like they're just jumping these ethnicities in to fuck over their own people. So Africa is a great example. You can go down the line of all the countries that they've gone in there as the IMF and offered them these loans. The fucking family lives like they're fucking the Kardashians. The people suffer. All of a sudden they can't pay back the loans, and it's all the minerals that these people own is now going to a conglomerate, you know, being fucking making roads and shit, you know, using outside labor from them making roads and shit in their shit so they can fucking steal their minerals. Like, it's like,
yeah, that's not a conspiracy. That's just
it's not a conspiracy.
That's just a global supply chain.
Right.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, I don't have anything to follow up on. You just explained it.
Okay, so to me, the ultimate connecting force of all of this is centralized.
One point. Sorry, I would disagree with, like, I mean, your point that, like,
but it's centralized banking.
but the whole idea that, like, capitalists paid Marx to write this, that the banks paid Marx to write this. I mean, Engels was.
No. You know what? It's deeper than that. I don't think they necessarily go to these people and do that. I think they have influences and they have influencers. And before they did all of the revolutionary shit, you know, they started getting in with families, and they saw kids that had tendencies. Like, they've been looking at us in this fucking experimental way for a long time.
But they don't have that much control. Like,
who doesn't have that much control?
They want that much control, but they don't have it. They want us to think that they have that much.
Because I want to know if we're talking about
bankers.
the same.
We're talking about bankers. When we say they, like the enemy, like the people controlling everything, we're talking about the bankers. We're talking about this. We're talking about the people who set up the Federal Reserve. The people who set up the Bank of England.
At this point, they're obvious. You know, like, to me, it's not only bankers, because J.D. Rockefeller is in on this. David Rockefeller,
Morgans,
the pastors. Nobody ever talks about them, but this is a family that owns a shit ton. You know, so like, I'm not talking about bankers. I'm talking about what bankers have become, because they couldn't just continue to marry themselves. So what they did is that they killed off monarchies in our heads. They wrote stories about it, and then they gave us corporations, which are basically legalized monarchies. And then when you combine monarchies when you combine corporations with government, you have fascism. Like, they just titled all these things, but it's literally the same shit that they've been trying to do all the time, which is always serfdom. No matter what you do, right now we're just
slavery. It's not serfdom, it's slavery. The banks are all about war and slavery.
Okay, so to me, the banking is just the tool that these people are using to accomplish this. They've used a religion for the longest time, you know, and then right around the Renaissance era, they started realizing that this shit is going to be hard to control.
Banking and religion. I mean, banking probably comes out of religion.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the priests were the first bankers. They're the first people to
Right.
board and control the money.
This is where it all came. And remember the big dumb law where like Christians could not lend money for profit, but
You're talking about the that's also in this book. That's the ban on usury.
yeah, the ban on usury. Yeah. That just
is incredible.
allowed one sect of people to fucking be able to dominate that one fucking industry that's now controlling everything. This is all connected to me.
And so first off, it's very important. When we talk about capitalism from my community, the group of people that around this book, we talk about usury. Usury we define as the central feature of capitalism in terms of what we want to change. We're not trying to get rid of wealth. We're not trying to get rid of luxury. We're not for austerity. We want to get rid of usury. We want to get rid of the systematic misuse of the monetary system.
If somebody can explain where we've ever had a discussion about fractional reserve banking, because I've been looking for it. Where is the discussion in our Congress, the debate that happened, what our presidents have ever thought about fractional reserved banking?
This is why, dude, this is exactly what the Alliance for Just Money, the group I'm working with, is fighting for. To deliberately, we're not just fighting for the NEED Act. We're fighting to get, we want Congress to hold hearings on money creation.
I'll get a digital copy of that.
Yeah. But I mean, exactly what you said. I mean, you really should consider joining the Alliance for Just Money and just checking out our next meeting online when we go to Zoom, because I mean, this is exactly what we want. We want Congress to hold hearings on this stuff. I mean, AOC is just like, I love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I think she's doing.
But let me guess. She's not going to touch this.
She's been our competitors. We have competitors called Modern Money Theory. I hope you've never heard of them.
I've never heard of them.
When you encounter them, I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about them.
Okay.
I'll try to keep your perspective as clear as possible. But
I appreciate that.
I don't have anything good to say about them. Like, we'll preface it at that.
Gotcha.
We disagree with very fundamental things that they say, but basically they've gotten to AOC before we did, because MMT is they have more money than we do. They've got a hedge fund at Warren Mosler, paying, working with a bunch of professors, economics professors from a bunch of different universities, including the new school where I graduated from.
Right.
And these people are creating a lot of confusion over how our monetary system works. They're throwing a lot of whack ass theory in place of like actual structural understanding, actual historical understanding of how the Fed was created. Like, they don't even talk about the conspiracy at Jekyll Island or any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
How can you start the conversation without talking about that event? Because the thing is, like, when you talk about that event, you also talk about how hidden it was, and it wasn't until years after, almost like the fucking Bible. It was almost after years after that they started talking about it and were allowed people to do it. And it was only decades after that they started bragging about what they did and who they owned.
Yeah. And a lot of my understanding is that a lot of what we know about the Federal Reserve and how it got set up was done by Eustace Mullins. He was a student of Ezra Pound.
Yep. I love that. God, he did that. That's who I got a lot of my federal banking information. I read that book.
You read that firsthand. I haven't even read that firsthand yet.
Oh man, amazing. I'm sure you can find a PDF online. Like,
definitely. I mean, Zarlenga references it heavily in this book.
Yeah.
This is why this book is good, because it just.
So I have clips of him. I could probably find him. Like, that dude is to me, he's a funny old man too. Like, when he's talking about this shit. When he talks about this shit, dude, he makes wisecracks and.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know that. Like, I've never, like, I didn't know there's clips of him actually talking about the Fed.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
that's some good shit to get high to later. I'm gonna check.
It's almost like a teaser. I'm gonna let you do that later, because instead I'm gonna transition and
that's good. Like, tweet. Yeah, thank you. Just thank you for that.
Yeah. I'll definitely send it your way, and we may even get to it today if because we're just twitching and shit. So we're it's kind of like a free form show, so it's nothing.
This is great. I mean, this is totally on topic.
Yeah. So okay. So check this out though. I've got this little clip, and this is like a couple of days after. And I want you to watch. It's only like 2 minutes, so let's watch this.
Let's watch it. Let me fire up.
Very, very strong building. Don't forget, that took a big bomb to the basement. Now, the basement is the most vulnerable place because that's your foundation. And it withstood that. And I got to see that area about 3 or 4 days after it took place, because one of my structural engineers actually took me for a tour because he did the building. And I said, I can't believe it. The building was standing solid and half of the columns were blown out. I mean, so this was an unbelievably powerful building. If you know anything about structure, it was one of the first buildings that was built from the outside. The steel, the reason the World Trade Center had such narrow windows is that in between all the windows, you had the steel on the outside. So you had the steel on the outside of the building. That's why when I first looked, and you had big, heavy I-beams, when I first looked at it, I couldn't believe it because there was a hole in the steel. And the steel that was, you remember the width of the windows in the World Trade Center, folks. I think you know, if you were ever up there, they were quite narrow. And in between was this heavy steel. I said, how could a plane, even a 767 or 747 or whatever it might have been, how could it possibly go through the steel? I happen to think that they had not only a plane, but they had bombs that exploded almost simultaneously, because I just can't imagine
Fuck out of here.
being able to go through that wall. Most buildings are built with the steel is on the inside around the elevator shaft. This one was built from the outside, which is the strongest structure you can have, and it was almost just like a can of soup.
You know, Donald, we've been looking at pictures all morning long of that plane coming into building number 2. When you see that approach the far side, and then all of a sudden, within a matter of a millisecond, the explosion pops out the other side.
Right. I just think
That's from the September Clues. That's what sold me right there. It was this documentary called September Clues.
They were going very rapidly because I was also watching where the plane seemed to be not only going fast, it seemed to be coming down into the building. So it was getting the speed from going downhill, so to speak.
Like, I don't think a plane hit it.
To me, that to do that kind of destruction is even more than a big plane, because you're talking about taking out steel, the heaviest caliber steel that was used on a building. And these buildings were rock solid. And, you know, it's just an amazing thing. This country is different today.
This country is different today.
And then he's like, I'm going to become president tomorrow.
No,
that was surreal, dude. I never saw that before. That was just fucking scary.
Yeah. So
scary. I mean, it's just scary.
If I really, so for the next one, I may, because I don't know if they'll even allow us to have any of this technology next year. Like I really am going downhill.
It's been getting harder since 2011.
Well, yeah, after researching for this week for this show, because I haven't really delved into it for a while, man. Right around 2010, 2009, I think, like, I was doing really well, and like I was doing this spiritual thing, and like, you know, and just kind of stopped harassing everybody to give a fuck, you know, and I've just been on this like Zen path I've lost everything, you know, I've lost everything like monetarily, but I've gained so much freedom in my emotions. Like, nobody upsets me unless I want to be upset. You know, it's like nobody has any, you know, like the only thing that I don't have control over is laughter. And that should, and I love it. I seek that.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, that's what I love.
Problem to have, man.
Exactly. I love stand-up comedy and I love hip hop because that shit's funny as fuck. You know, and but anyways, well, okay. So we both talked about where we were when it happened. And how old were you? Do you remember because you said you were a freshman in college. You were like 19?
Yeah.
So
probably 18.
What do you think happened? Like, what in your explanation after 20 years, like what is your 1 minute, 30-second, this is what happened? I don't care if it's the official word. I don't care if it's this. I don't care if it's aliens did it. I don't care. What do you think happened?
I don't know. That's the first thing I gotta say.
Obviously, yeah. Nobody knows. I don't know.
I don't want to say I don't want to know, but for me, I mean, the bigger question is, I mean, as soon as it happened, put it this way, as soon as it happened, I knew the question wasn't how did this happen? The question isn't why did this happen? I mean, the whole idea that like it's an inside job. I mean, like there's plenty of you know, that people in the Middle East have plenty of motivation to want to attack us on their own. I mean, I don't think they needed, you know, much. I don't think like they don't need much motivation to do something like this. But
The people in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean, like we're a target. I mean, we bombed, the shit out of the Middle East.
At the same time, you're still going to acknowledge our financial in Israel and Saudi Arabia's financial connection to anything that happens militarily in that region, though, right?
Exactly.
Like,
I mean, like there's
three countries.
like there's
Right?
there's no like I mean, like when this happened, like I wasn't surprised. I'm like,
But they're the only ones that have they're the only ones that have the ability by the UN to create these weapons. And for these other people to get them, it has to come through these three countries in that region, though, right? We have
I mean,
to that.
yeah. I mean, like the thing about like when this first happened, I remember thinking the first thing in my mind is that this is going to be an excuse, regardless of like whether or not it was an inside job. I didn't think it was an inside job at first. Honestly, I was just like, yeah, we got attacked. Like, why wouldn't they attack us? Like, of course. The question is, who's going to pay for this? Like the counterattack. You know that the persecution, the lack of freedom stuff is going to start to come up. But then, like, little by little, you start to hear the conspiracy stuff. And like, I mean, that clip with Donald Trump, you hear everything that everyone else was saying. And it's just
that's wrong. That's like on the 12th or the 13th of September of 2001. So he is just talking off the top of his head. He wasn't there wasn't a conspiracy at that time. This is literally, he's trying to make smarts of what the fuck just happened. He's
and
New York.
And I mean, to me, that was always like the first thing. I mean, all these people who were like feeling as if they lost something, that was always the scary part to me, like the group thing. Like, no, this is not the time to lose your head. This is the time to do your homework.
Exactly.
This is not the time to hang out and talk with your friends. This is the time to get online and like read the newspaper and shit. I think the internet was still pretty slow back then too, even in 2001. Like it wasn't what it is now.
Yeah,
I
had an advantage because I was on campus and it was like it is now. For me, like we had the fastest, like we were like a section, like everything connected right there. So like internet came through us, like Georgia Tech, and everything on campus was super fast. Like where I was working was this thing called Office of Information Technology, and we were part of an advanced development group. And at the time we were trying to stream, we were trying to put little webcams in all of like the big auditoriums and be able to stream the audio and video. So if somebody was sick, they could just go to an IP address and still get that lecture and not miss that section. So that's what we were just kind of developing little things. And that was just one of the things that we were.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah, but it was back then. But this is before Real Player really finally fixed it. This is before we had the technology to do it fast and stream it. So like we were all struggling. We all had Red Hat. We all had, we were all using Linux and that shit just to get your speakers to work. Yeah, so but the thing is, like, we were fast. So like I could get video, like we were streaming and if not, we were practicing.
That's cool.
That's what we were doing. So that's why we had the news on, and that's where I walked into him already knowing.
That's some Occupy shit right there. That's what Occupy Wall Street was like.
Yeah, no, dude, I've lived a good life when it comes to that, man. I've been shown the way or something, like
that's cool.
It's nice.
No, I mean, like, but I think just to finish up and to finally answer your last question, like, what do I think happened?
Yeah,
I think it was a combination of, I mean, like, at least conspiracy. I mean, I do think there was an attack. Obviously, there was an attack. I don't think, they needed much prodding to do it. I think there was a lot of incompetence as to how all this shit happened.
It's that micro.
And man, I mean, like the demolition, it looks like a demolition charge. I mean, like, I don't know anything about demolitions. I've never seen buildings go down. I can't speak to this. But yeah, I mean, like I've been on planes before. They're tiny, they're flimsy. I mean, like they don't bring down a whole building that's meant to withstand like wind and rainstorms and stuff. Like,
wait, and I haven't even gotten into the conspiracy of all of this yet.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even heard like facts or.
So I'm gonna show you something here in a second. I hope you still indulge me. I'm gonna show you.
I'm an incompetence theorist. Like my whole thing, the thing that I always
I've realized it's an option.
Is gross incompetence. That's usually what I'm assuming and what my hypothesis is.
Mhm.
So when I see something like the creature at Jekyll Island, the Gulf of Tonkin, or the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, or any of this shit, like when I see something that like clearly has like factual basis, like this is a clear, like they're clear, this conspiracy has been exposed. Like I, like it meets a pretty high standard with me, because like I don't usually assume like I don't think predators are any smarter than they have to be in order to get what they want. Like they don't want to work any harder than they have to put us into slavery. So I mean, like for them to get like really conspiratorial and shit, like when they do it, it's real to me.
Right. And so I guess, and I can appreciate that. And there's really that's a really fair option. And and a lot of the same people that I love, and a lot of the people that I met throughout Facebook that turned on me in the last couple of years, those people, that's their response. Like the people that took the time to reach out to me as they were saying goodbye. Like that's what they were saying, like that's a, it's just, that they were thinking like it's too difficult to think of it as a negative thing, and it is.
It's a deliberate thing, you mean?
What's that? Yeah, that this is all deliberate. Yeah,
like they would deliberately kill U.S. citizens.
Right.
No, that's not. That could be like in my brain. That could very well be.
I wasn't saying that for you.
Yeah, like I don't like. I mean, it blows my mind that other people wouldn't contemplate that. Like how, like what?
So you've contemplated it and went against it, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm American Indian. I mean, I was born into this. Like I grew up with an alternative view of history.
Mm-hmm.
Learning. For every book I read in school, I mean, I probably read a few that my parents were giving me on my own. So I mean, like just growing up, that the US.
Howard Zinn is?
What's that?
You know who Howard Zinn is?
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah.
People's History. Like to me, that was like when I was ready for that book. That book presented itself to me, and it tied a lot of the conspiracy and actual history. And then I started realizing that wait, conspiracy is just history. So my love of history just like sprung from there, and I just became like all about history and just like trying to look at it in context.
So that's sociological response
to confidence to evil plan. Go ahead.
Well, Howard Zinn, Poor People's History. I studied at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with noted. He's an anarchist. He's an anarchist historian. He worked with Paul Averidge. His name is Michael Gordon. He's a distinguished professor at University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and he taught us Howard Zinn. I studied that with him. And the sociological response to poor people's history is poor people's movements. This is by Howard Zinn's colleague, Frances Fox Piven.
Right. And
this is a really important book. She endorsed Occupy Wall Street too. She's a huge fan of it. And but this her and her partner Richard Clower, this is their case studies of when social movements are at their most effective and when they create the most beneficial results for the people. Right. And so in terms of this is something I was reading in college right after 9/11 happened.
Right.
And so I was studying social movements. I was studying, the theory and historical case studies for stuff like this before I ever got involved with Occupy Wall Street. So I actually learned something useful in school.
So you're saying, so you're telling me that books have had a big impact on your life? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Like reading books have given you a different perspective than what TV has given you?
I mean, like these two books right here have probably given my life more direction than.
Oh no.
Let me get my can back on. I just knocked it off. Yeah, but I mean, these two books. This is the what. This is how did we get to where we are now? Like, why does everything suck right now? But this is the how we get out of this. Like, this is the how. This is, you want to know how you start a movement. This is where you start reading. And the thing that you get when you read this book is, first off, what they argue against is like a mass membership model. They argue against like a union, for example.
I agree with that too.
Or groups that are trying to just swell the ranks. Like, so,
exactly. Yep.
like educational models. What they argue for is always direct action. What starts things off, and direct action. The thing about direct action, it usually only takes small groups of like 3 to 6 people to start direct action, to start some sort of event that leads to a big media circus, like Rosa Parks, for example, or and Dr. King. I mean, all that stuff. So I mean, it takes a lot of courage, and it takes people who are willing to actually subject themselves to some repercussions.
Right.
But it gets the goods. It gets things done.
Well, I don't think I could disagree with that. That's for sure. I'm going to definitely go back, because I've heard of that book, and I think that may have been a book that I may have overlooked. But through your
important.
Yeah, through your strong recommendations, and even just a quick tidbit that's right up my alley.
Just check it out on Wikipedia.
That's what I need to do. Yeah, that's something that I need to get into my head. So I'll definitely grab that one, and I appreciate that, and everybody going for that one. So that's what happened, and then so what do you remember? What do you recall changing, like when all this happened? Like what was your?
The more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, it was the death of the '90s. Like the good times were over.
Yeah,
the happy days were just. It wasn't cool to be happy anymore. Now, I mean, like all of a sudden, everyone's depressed, but they're depressed about bullshit. Not that,
dude.
Not that 9/11 was bullshit. I mean, real people died.
Right.
Like you're like sympathizing over something that didn't have, like you don't have PTSD from this. Like you're not worried about another plane coming and hitting you again. Like you could go back to work just fine. You're not traumatized.
Exactly.
You just don't want to work. You just want people to listen to you and talk for a while.
Well, also, I think that the powers that be, orchestrated that in order to foster these memories of this is a big deal, so that when they're living under, oh, now I got to take my shoes off to fly on an airplane? Like, wait, what? Why is sexual harassment part of getting on an airplane? Like, why is sexual harassment part of getting on an airplane? I don't understand that. Like,
I think that was always part of being on an airplane if you're a hot chick, but
yes. Hey, I think you got a bomb. Come on, come over here. I don't know, man. The whole thing to me.
Yeah, no, I mean the TSA was the first thing you noticed for sure.
I was traveling a lot, and that shit. And you know what I remember? I think honestly, like what I remember the most is when I finally made it over to Europe to realize that they don't do that. So when I was like, when I was like flying, like when I was once in Europe, I was like flying to all the different countries. I was like, I already had the habit of like taking off my shoes, and everybody was looking at me. I was like, wait, what? I don't have to take off my shoes? Walk onto the airplane? Oh wow, that's OG as fuck. So it was crazy, man. It's just nuts.
Everyone was probably smoking cigarettes right on the plane.
Yeah, right to the air mag, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so
everything changed. Everything got worse. And that's the thing. Like, it got worse little by little. It didn't just get worse all at once. It was just like, a little bit more.
This is where I want you to I want to put this guy's video on that he did. This is one of my most respected journalists that has been doing video journalism for 15 years as an opposition to news. So when I shut off the news, this type of guy are the ones in. And I'm not scared to admit that Alex Jones back then was key for me too, because he wasn't going by politics. He wasn't going by party politics. He started off by saying, "Hey, W's a fraud. I'm from Texas. Like, if y'all elect this guy president, y'all are idiots." And that's how he started off.
That's
and so
funny.
I was down with that thought. So that's where I gravitated towards that line of thinking. It sounded honest. It just seemed honest. So
they got Ludi quick.
No, what you do is like when you consume as much as he consumes, to me, he's still batting quite high in the batting average, more than the news. Remember, the news still got us into a war that we haven't gotten out of yet, technically, and they lied us in there. It was the Plume, Valerie Plume
Yeah.
the blackmail
Yeah.
on him and all the on the husband and all this weird shit. And then she posts the shit on a New York Times. And back then that shit was credible, so she posted shit in New York Times. Dick Cheney the next day goes on Meet the Press and talks about this fucking thing. And then you find out that he fucking planted that shit and fucking almost killed the husband to fucking get that shit done. It's like, wait a minute, what the fuck? These guys are gangsters, man. So then it started opening up the idea of what else do they do, and they kill people, man. I don't know if you know who Seth Rich is, but they kill people. Like these people that are in our government. Like if there's only 500 of them, but they employ like hundreds of thousands of people to keep this charade going, so we don't go in there and just execute every 501 of them in our Congress. And because the thing is, like, everybody points to Trump. Fuck Trump. There's people that in Congress for fucking 40 years. They've overseen all of this shit. They've said they've never raised the bell once. Like these are the people that are enriching themselves, dictating over us, enriching their families. This is not fair. This is not what government's supposed to be. They're not supposed to be elitist.
Not what our government was supposed to be.
So
I never believed in our government, like, from the get-go. Like, I always thought it was bullshit, like, from the inception. But, like, this is just, like, so freaking much more, just the scale of it. Like, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
The war, the deception, there's nothing new, but it's just the scale. It's what they expect in return. Like, people have never had to work as hard as we do now.
Exactly.
I mean, just like the length of the hours alone. I mean, like, not to sound bad, but like, even slaves could only work from sun up to sun down. Like, here you got to get 2 jobs now. Like, it's not even like you're done when the day is done. It's just
both parents have to get 2 jobs. Who's raising kids?
They just keep taking more. The amount that they take has just never been like this before. Like, this system is just historically unprecedented. I mean, I always go back to the point that Zarlenga makes, of like the kind of homelessness that we see in places like New York or Atlanta Colorado just didn't exist, like, in the dark ages. Like, even a peasant had a hut on some, like, land somewhere, something to eat. Like, they just, even the most destitute Roman had the bread and the circuses just so that they wouldn't go crazy. Like, the amount of just the sheer lack of empathy is just so historically unprecedented. I mean, like, usually when the bankers commit some conspiracy, like the Gulf of Tonkin in Vietnam, I mean, like, usually they do it away from American soil. I mean, that's like what seems different about this. I'm not even going to call it a conspiracy yet. I think it is, honestly, but I'll call it a potential conspiracy just to reserve a little bit of judgment until we see this next clip. But I mean, I think that's what's new about this too. Like, we've never seen, like, the sinking of Lusitania. I mean, that was the Spanish Civil War. That was even, I don't think that was American soil either. That was in Puerto Rico or something, right? I forget. Yes, I mean, this is totally unprecedented. There's a precedent for it, but it defies the precedent that's been set.
So I wonder, I don't think I've played this one. Before I play the big clip, the one that ties in my new theory that 9/11 was actually, like, coronavirus is literally an extension of what 9/11 was globally. 9/11 was the beginning of and coronavirus is the extension. Like, they're using it, like, they initially used terrorism, which is an abstract and a concept, a war against terrorism, to create a whatchamacallit, a police state. But at the same time, what they did for the next 6 years was create something that's called the biosecurity, which is basically the same type of shit. So now that's where I'm gonna still hold reserve. So let's before I get into that, let's
Well, I got some. We'll follow up on that. Let's check out this clip.
yeah, let's
smoke this clip while we watch this clip.
This is just a recap. This is this guy James Corbett. This is how I.
Oh, that's not Corbin. Yeah.
James Corbett. So this is this guy, but this is his reporting a 5-minute or 4-minute of what 9/11 was. This is what we're expected to believe. Let's just get on the same page. Is that too loud?
That's good. That little quiet. That's good.
All right.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, 19 men armed with box cutters
How about
directed
that?
by a man on dialysis in a cave fortress halfway around the world using a satellite phone and a laptop directed the most sophisticated penetration of the most heavily defended airspace in the world, overpowering the passengers in the military combat trained pilots on 4 commercial aircraft before flying those planes wildly off course for over an hour without being molested by a single fighter interceptor. These 19 hijackers, devout religious fundamentalists who like to drink alcohol, snort cocaine, and live with pink-haired strippers, managed to knock down 3 buildings with 2 planes in New York, while in Washington, a pilot who couldn't handle a single-engine Cessna was able to fly a 757 in an 8,000-foot descending 270-degree corkscrew turn to come exactly level with the ground, hitting the Pentagon in the budget analyst office where DoD staffers were working on the mystery of the $2.3 trillion that Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld had announced missing from the Pentagon's coffers in a press conference the day before, on September 10th, 2001. Luckily, the news anchors knew who did it within minutes.
Osama bin Laden.
The pundits knew within hours.
Osama bin Laden.
The administration knew within the day.
Terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbor them.
And the evidence literally fell into the FBI's lap.
That a hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
But for some reason, a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists demanded an investigation into the greatest attack on American soil in history. That investigation was delayed, underfunded, set up to fail, a conflict of interest, and a cover-up from start to finish. It was based on testimony extracted through torture, the records of which were destroyed. It failed to mention the existence of WTC-7, Able Danger, P-TECH, Sibel Edmonds, OBL and the CIA, and the drills of hijacked aircraft being flown into buildings that were being simulated at the precise same time that those events were actually happening. It was lied to by the Pentagon, the CIA, the Bush administration, and as for Bush and Cheney, well, no one knows what they told it because they testified in secret, off the record, not under oath, and behind closed doors. It didn't bother to look at who funded the attacks because that question is ultimately of little practical significance. Still, the 9/11 Commission did brilliantly answering all of the questions the public had, except most of the victims' family members' questions, and pinned blame on all the people responsible, although no one so much as lost their job, determining the attacks were
failure of imagination.
Because
Nobody in our government, at least, and I don't think the prior government that could envision flying airplanes into buildings.
Except the Pentagon, FEMA, NORAD, and the NRO. The DIA destroyed 2.5 terabytes of data on Able Danger, but that's okay because it probably wasn't important. The SEC destroyed their records on the investigation into the insider trading before the attacks, but that's okay because destroying the records of the largest investigation in SEC history is just part of routine record keeping. NIST has classified the data that they used for their model of WTC-7's collapse, but that's okay because knowing how they made their model of the collapse would jeopardize public safety. The FBI has argued that all material related to their investigation of 9/11 should be kept secret from the public, but that's okay because the FBI probably has nothing to hide. This man never existed, nor is anything he had to say worthy of your attention, and if you say otherwise, you are a paranoid conspiracy theorist and deserve to be shunned by all of humanity. Likewise him, and her, and her, and her, and him. Osama bin Laden lived in a cave fortress in the hills of Afghanistan, but somehow got away. Then he was hiding out in Tora Bora, but somehow got away. Then he lived in Abbottabad for years, taunting the most comprehensive intelligence dragnet employing the most sophisticated technology in the history of the world for a decade, releasing video after video with complete impunity and getting younger and younger as he did so, before finally being found in a daring SEAL team raid which wasn't recorded on video, in which he didn't resist or use his wife as a human shield, and in which these crack special forces operatives panicked and killed this unarmed man, supposedly the best source of intelligence about those dastardly terrorists on the entire planet. Then they dumped his body in the ocean before telling anyone about it. Then a couple dozen of that team's members died in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. This is the story of 9/11, brought to you by the media which told you the hard truths about
His head could be seen to move violently forward.
And
they took the babies out of incubators.
And
mobile production facilities.
And
the rescue of Jessica Lynch.
If you have any questions about this story, paranoid tinfoil dog abusing baby hater and will be reviled by everyone. If you love your country and
Ain't
or
that the
freedom,
truth?
happiness, rainbows, rock and roll, puppy dogs, apple pie, and your grandma, you will never ever express doubts about any part of this story to anyone. Ever. This has been a public service announcement by the Friends of the FBI, CIA, NSA, DIA, SEC, NSM, White House, NIST, and the 9/11 Commission.
So
Because
so that, and he ends it with says ignorance is strength, which we both know. Why is it just on me?
Straight out of Orwell.
Yeah. So
Straight out of Orwell, all of it.
so anyways, so this guy nails that, and I actually find out that he's a damn good journalist. Like this is just what he does. He actually moved to Japan so that he could have the freedom to do this about America.
Wow.
Yeah. So he actually does a lot of just really. He's one of those researchers. Why we get all this information. All the real information, like the shit you can go to bat with, like not the bullshit reactionary stuff. This is like this is the paper. This is the conflict of interest here. This is the context of what's going on. So you can think. So this is the funny thing. The situation that we're in is if you look at it on a micro level, it looks like incompetence, and that's how they sell it to everybody, and that's how they get everybody because everybody's compromisable.
Well, I mean, the United States looks incompetent. The hijackers looked more competent than I think. That video made me see the hijackers as being less competent than I initially assumed they were. Like, I didn't know that these were like Muslims, doing cocaine with strippers, and I'm assuming that everything in that is fact checked and verified.
No, yeah, that's the thing.
Let's
is like
assume that it is.
But no, well, the amazing thing about this guy, like that's actually a YouTube clip, and we know who YouTube is now. They literally cannot shut this guy down. Like this guy, it only touches on verifiable shit. Like he does not fuck around. So okay, so
I'll believe it though. I mean, but yeah, my assumption was always this was gross at a minimum gross incompetence on
right,
the
right.
US part.
Okay. So
Which wouldn't surprise me. I mean, the whole knowledge that bombs and stuff being in the building and explosions going off and stuff like that.
Right.
Other issues.
I guess the opposite of ignorance is strength, is trust but verify. Like that includes you having to do something. Like you can hear something and think that it fits your ethos and thinks that it fits your soul, but you still got to verify the veracity of it and the validity of it. Like, or else you're just a fool. To me,
I remember
fool. And to me, someone who doesn't have control of their emotions is a fool. And
that's what Aristotle would say too. I mean, that goes back to the whole ancient Greek, conception of.
Because what has been found out by these people is that people that are emotional are easy to manipulate. They're the ones that they get to run through the wall and do the dumb shit. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. Have control.
That's what Socrates' whole. That's the whole basis of Socrates. That's why Socrates had to drink hemlock, because he was that guy. He was the first who was saying these wars that Athens wants to go into are a bunch of bullshit. Like these are killed. Like, I mean, it was the same thing. I mean, the fall of ancient Athens. I mean, you talk about. I mean, because we still got to talk about the coronavirus a little bit too. I mean, like the bankers do this when they jack the people up, when they leave the people like completely like without food, just exhausted, overworked, tired. Like this is when plagues break out within the cities. Right. Like after, I mean, it's always the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Like you got war, you got famine, and you got pestilence, and then you got the death. It's the apocalypse is always the monetary system. That's the veil. That's the thing that the revelation keeps happening, but no one sees that this is all coming from a breakdown in our monetary system. And it always has been. All the war, all the death, all these inside. I mean, like fake war is nothing new.
No.
The whole Trojan War thing was probably just
a bullshit. That's what I'm trying to say is like that they've made deals with all of these different cultures. They just keep knocking them down. Like China was one of the last ones to be knocked down in the 60s, right, or the 50s, right after fucking they failed in Germany. Because they were going to do Germany, and they had a secret plan to take over America at the same time. And when that shit was exposed by a general named Smedley Butler, praise that dude. Do you know who General Smedley Butler is?
I know that name. Yeah.
Okay, so Smedley Butler wrote a book called War is Racket, and he testified. He's the one that ratted out the fact that they had instituted like all of these war people to be on the fascist sides. They were going to join sides with what Hitler was doing and try to take over America in the same way. There's like all these captain of industries and all these politicians, and this is and they had told a couple of military people, you know, to do this, and this guy fucking, you know. Once this guy like he was going along with the whole thing, and I don't know how, I bet you he was kind of shady, and then maybe got to change of heart later. I don't think like, you know, this guy's a saint. So if you dig up some dirt on him, I don't give a fuck. You know, he'll testify to this, you know, and it's random that now it's all playing out in a different fucking place. It almost like it would have been better off for us if he would have just let that shit happen, because then we at least would have been part of the head. Now they moved that shit all the way to fucking China. So like they're going to be the dictator, because I don't know if you know about the Road and Belt Initiative, but it does not include America. And the Belt and Road Initiative is a very serious thing. And basically,
never heard of that one.
You've never heard of the Belt and Road Initiative. All right, so we'll definitely look that up. It's something that it's a partnership between Israel and China, and they plan on using technology that we've given them, and all of this data security that we've given them to run China, to basically do everything that we've been doing for China. You know, we've been doing all the logistical stuff. So basically, their shit only includes that whole little circle that encompasses every other nation. That's like Europe and all this other shit. You know, every other place gets touched by this little loop that they can do to ship everything. That doesn't include America. It just doesn't include America. It's called the Belt and Road Initiative, and it's scary as fuck. And it's really, really close to being instituted. And it just happens to coincide with all this other stuff. And I think it's our banks, because I don't know if you remember the Tiananmen Square, but that's like when so we were there in China nefariously after, like our banks were there nefariously after, like Rockefeller talks about it all the time, but they were there trying to take over a lot of their institutions and stuff like that after the whole Nazi Germany shit happened. And that's once they started getting into some of their policies, that's where some of the policies such as the two-child policy, because a lot of the stuff that was done in America, then moved to Germany, then moved to China, these are all eugenics ideas. These are all ideas of like, we can make the human species better. So when I used to think this was strictly a financial monopoly and evil plan, this is where the shit started to make sense, because like just like you, I'm like, having all the money is winning. Like, I don't understand what gets it to this evil step. Like, I couldn't fathom what was getting it to this evil step. That's eugenics. That's this idea that we can make humans better. And that's where eugenics and transhumanism combine, because they're the ones that are the driving force to what the cultural evolution is. Like, they're the ones that are paying the influencers to make us want to be half robotic and half this. They're the ones that are paying the ideas to get conceptualized in our heads. Like, they don't do this shit overnight. They wait and wait and wait till we want it. And I think that's what takes it from being a banking conspiracy to a global, cultural, human conspiracy. Like, where
the banking, I mean, the
humanity versus
the banking. I mean, the Fed is a global conspiracy. I mean, the Rothschilds are the foreign backers, the foreign investors in the Fed. I mean, the same way that the Bank of England was floated with Dutch financing, they always called it. I mean, like the banking cartels, it was always an international game. And I mean, even going back to Zarlenga for a minute, I mean, before we had the central banks, we had the East-West gold silver exchange. So I mean, like, what happened is you would take your gold if you're in the East, you would take your gold to the West, you know, to Rome or something like that, where you would get, you know, twice as much silver for it. And similarly, you take your silver out east, you know, to India, China, if you could make it. This is what Marco Polo was looking for, and you would exchange your silver there, and you would get more gold there for your silver. And this was the ancient predecessor of the Federal Reserve, this ancient silver gold trade. And this is what all the exploration was about. This is what Columbus was looking for, a faster route to tap into this trade. Magellan was looking for faster routes, Marco Polo, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, this has always been a global game that bankers play. It's the bankers versus everybody else, and it always has been.
Yep. And they're the ones that made the decision that they wanted corporations over monarchies to institute this thing.
Monarchies were inconvenient
exactly. So they went with corporations, which were the same things, but that also included a government that felt real. But the corruption came from corrupting the politicians to do whatever the corporations, which were the monarchies, to do. So they just changed a bunch of names, changed the whole system around, killed a bunch of people, or just a few people, really. Like what, Marie Antoinette, like she definitely got the X, but was she really important to the whole thing?
No.
I mean,
did killing her change anything? Did that get anyone fed? Did that get anyone? No.
No. It just made it for the books that we could write about. And when you tell
history, scapegoat.
Exactly. But when you tell history, you say that of this, that of that. Then she said, let him eat cake. They chopped her head off. Next thing you know, we got government as what we wanted. And we wanted corporations. We created corporations, but we didn't. We were given corporations. The same, it's just nonsense, man. Like all these systems are not investigated enough.
And now we're at the point where, I mean, we've gotten to the point where monarchy was too inconvenient for the banks. Now we're at the point where democracy is too inconvenient for the banks, and we're entering
prison planet.
Yeah,
with less population, because how much easier is it to control a lot less people than all the people that they've allowed to fucking, because really we're supposed to only be at about 1 billion. 1 billion is what we've sustained. The Earth is sustained for hundreds of thousands of millions of years, or whatever you want to believe. If you only want to believe it happened 4,000 years, I don't give a fuck. That's what we've sustained for the last 140 years since we've extracted, if you want to say ancient sunlight, or if you want to say oil, since we started extracting that shit, our population has grown exponentially. And you would think that's good, but the amount of people that live in such horrific conditions has not changed. It doesn't. I don't understand why we have so much more and so much more abundance that we can't provide for just everybody, to just let them be. That would be the natural order of what humans would want. But instead, what we have is a manipulative group of people that are controlling what our desires are. They've gone into a more Freudian idea of how to control people. Like everything is strategic. Everything is strategic now. Where if they continue to get their way, we're gonna end up as lab rats, or dead. Like a lot of us aren't gonna make this. I'm not gonna make it. I don't think I'm gonna be along.
A lot of us aren't gonna make it. You ever heard of? I mean, have you ever heard of Discipline and Punish by Michael Foucault?
No, what is that one? I've definitely heard of that guy, because I know I've accidentally, in a really nice place, I had read something and I said Foucault, and everybody looked at me.
Yeah.
I felt so stupid.
You talk about Prison Planet. Like, this is the history of Prison Planet. This is how it got started, and he doesn't tie it to the banks per se. He's just looking at kind of the birth of the prison culture, the prison planet in general. He calls it the Panopticon. That's sort of his model.
I like that name.
Yeah, that's Jeremy Bentham's. That's Jeremy Bentham's ideal model for power, for supervising and monitoring individuals. One person in this silo that can see all these different rooms. The rooms, the people in the rooms can't see the person inside. So it's that's his model of how this works, and it is. I mean, Foucault's definition of power. Like, what is power? For Foucault, power isn't just the ability to oppress and to squash people down. Power is positive, like you point out. It's more like inception. You're putting ideas into people's heads. You're creating desires. You're artificially stimulating desires.
But here's where the power.
Okay. What his other book, History of Sexuality, is all about.
Oh, nice. But here, before you get into that, real quick, here's where I think they have ultimate power, is where if any idea springs up, or if anything comes up, let's say Google was in earnest when they started, they have all the fake money they need to buy up most anybody.
Exactly.
So if you do come up with something, let's say you create hip hop, let's say you're a generation of
Anything
A's,
you do,
let's say you create grunge,
anything.
anything, they then can monopolize it and turn it into whatever they want to turn it.
Well, they've already capitalized on it before you created it. You had to survive off their system.
Exactly.
Just to get it done. And after you've gotten it done, they're going to commodify it. They are going to take most of the profits and leave you having to do more of what you just did in order to get more of that back.
Right.
Exactly. This is fractional reserve lending again. This is why.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the people that bucked it. Let's talk about Michael Jackson real quick. Just for real quick. This is a little side. But Michael Jackson was one of the few artists that owned not only his own publishing, but other people's publishing, including the Beatles. So he was playing their game better than they were. And he was fucking Sony, which was a huge company at that time. And so a lot of the stuff about him you can believe or not believe, but what's true is that he was never convicted in the court of law for these things that they asked him. And a lot of the things that he said and a lot of the videos that he left behind and a lot of the speeches that he gave talked about an ominous banking cartel that owns the music industry that forces these terrible situations and causes people to lose their minds. Like, and then you, at the same time, you had Britney Spears doing what she was doing. You had all these people rebelling, like they grew up in this shit. You have
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, Kurt Cobain. You have all these Justin Timberlake currently, like is now Christian or some shit. These people are so manipulated early on. They're not allowed to form their ideas, and there should be something against this type of predatorial activity towards children, but there isn't. Obviously nobody gives a fuck.
No,
let's get back to the introspection of 9/11, shall we?
Yeah.
So what is the biggest memory? Like when you think of 9/11, is it the buildings on fire? Is it the ash afterwards? Is it the buildings coming down? What is the one thing that is the lasting memory for you after 20 years?
The building's coming down. It's not even the plane anymore. It's the building's coming down. It's not the plane. I mean, it's for me too. I mean, the memories of the aftermath, just coming out here and hearing the firsthand stories, like, just from people at work, just like that's always the real memory for me. Just kind of realizing this isn't over yet. Like, I mean, there's like the media memory. And then I have my own memories of hearing all these stories when I first moved here, on 9/11. So, which I'm glad. I mean, I wouldn't have that that's the advantage of being a New Yorker and coming out here. Like, you do get a different perspective than this weird media narrative. I mean, like, I would be way more cynical. I'd probably be saying some pretty offensive shit if I wasn't out here and if I didn't know people who were affected by it, because I'd be like, this is just another sham. This is some bullshit.
Right.
But
that's a perspective that I need to be.
And it is. You actually dishonor the people that got murdered, and even the survivors who have to live with this for the rest of their lives. You dishonor them by not asking these difficult questions.
Exactly.
You don't just fucking move on from this shit. You got to get to the bottom of it so that it never happens again. And we as a species have never gotten to the bottom of it. Right. I mean, to your point about all these children and all these stuff, I mean, it's like, how the hell can you bring a child into this world even before 9/11 happened? I mean, like,
well,
now, I mean, with 9/11, I mean, the coronavirus, just like.
Funny you say that, but the reason why I do not have a kid is because of the what I thought. I just thought it would be irresponsible for me to bring a child into.
It is. How do you expect a child to survive all this shit just to take care of me
in the future?
To take care of myself. It's not fair to put on anybody.
Exactly. No, and that's the choice that I've made. In 43 years running.
I'd rather fight this shit. Like this, that's what gives me meaning to my life.
No, exactly. Same here. A lot of the time that I put is like usually empowering artists, because what I've realized is artists have usually, man, when I was growing, as I was getting over my formative years and going into, being 21 to 28 and becoming something, it's like these ideas as they were formulating, I was telling other people that were really good at their art form, and I just would recall telling people these things, and then they would be able to create a piece of art form, whether it be a lyric or whether it be some artwork that would just encapsulate everything that I was thinking, as if it was like nothing. It was just like, oh yeah, this is what you were thinking the other day, man. Look at this. This is what I was just like, oh my God, that's
It's like a photo, 1,000 words in one.
exactly. It's like, no way I could create that. I could think about this shit for day and day and day in, and I could never come up with something so beautiful and precise.
That's cool, man.
Concise, And so I was like, okay, so how can I empower these people? So I started, I was already building like a music studio. So it's just like music, video, audio, and it's just like restaurateurs, it's just like we're all the same type of people, DJs, strippers, even, or sex workers, if you want to call them. Like we're just independent. We wanted to do something outside of this government, and now they're taking that away. So now all those people that I used to fucking, get on to and talk to them about and like tell them, hey, always own your own shit and be able to do this shit live. Like that was always things that I would tell these people as they came in.
It's not even good enough.
Now it's not even good enough because now they took it all away. So now it's like the time to go against this. If we can continue to comply, we're going to end up with nothing.
And it's not even like they took it all away. It's they already had it. We just sort of realized a little too late that they always had it. You had your little illusion of freedom. For me, it was it was the capoeira world. That was always
that's hardcore right there, dude.
When I started getting interested, capoeira is hip hop. I mean, it all comes from the same place, right? And I mean, like the music has a lot in common with hip hop and rock and roll. Yeah. And I mean, it's obviously, this is an art that came directly out of the fight for freedom. Black slaves. A lot of people died to bring us capoeira. And I mean, the history of capoeira is tied directly to the history of the fight, of course. Mm-hmm. But for me, that was always the solution. That was always sort of the escape. I mean, like, if only everyone just played capoeira, somehow the world would get better.
Right.
Like if only like everyone just sees the problem for what it is. But a few years of that, you get into it. And it breaks down, like all the work you do. People got money issues. People got to get focused on their families and their careers and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, like they took it from you before you even had it. You had this image, you had this moment of it, just enough to drive you fucking crazy, just enough to feel the pain of not having it after you had it. And then you chase it again. It's just like chasing that dragon.
So what do you think about this? I just saw this cashless stadium. So the Los Angeles Raiders went into Las Vegas. So now they just built a stadium there, and they're going to be the first all cashless stadium. Everything's cashless.
Cool.
Parking, everything.
He's using like Zip or just iPhone type.
You pay whatever you want. Credit card, chip card, whatever. But that takes away the freedom that comes with cash money. Like the little bit of illusion of freedom that they've given us with cash money. Because before it wasn't trackable. Now it's kind of trackable, but still you could get away with being a part of the black market. Now only the people that are sanctioned to do the black market. So people are going to think that shit doesn't even exist. It's crazy where we're going. Like I think if we move to a cashless society, I think that's it. I think the banks win, game over. Or if you want to call them the banks, I want to call them something besides just banks.
Well, for stoners, it's game over. Yeah, if we go to a cashless society, like we don't get to function anymore.
Yeah, no. As someone
if they went to a completely cashless society, I almost bet you'd almost have to start an alternative currency within, the drug markets.
That's what Gaddafi did, right? That's why he had to get killed by
he wasn't trying to create an alternative currency. He was trying to create his own currency.
No,
that's People getting killed in the Middle East for trying. Rulers been getting killed in the Middle East for trying to stuff.
No, he created the dinar, and he's in Africa.
Yeah,
he created the dinar, and he was trying to enrich Africa. So basically, he was doing it by gold, by what some economists would be a more proper way to do money. And
well, bullshit. That's the oldest trick in the world.
What's that?
We'll get back. We can talk about that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, I don't think it should be that either way. Honestly, I think that enough people that want to be doctors, enough people that want to be healers, enough people that want to be builders, enough people that want to be engineers, enough people that want to be scientists, that they would just continue to build on the shoulders of us if we just provided for everybody, where everybody just got everything that they needed at any time, where it was a cashless society for real, like where you didn't have to work if you didn't want to work, but if you wanted to work, you probably were drawn to work. Like that wouldn't build a lesser society. It would build a more wiser society. We would continue to build on top of each other. And we don't know where it would go, but it wouldn't be where this is now. But nobody stewards anything like that. No, like the problem with the way I think is that we don't get together in groups and try to manipulate this upon others the way other people do their ideas. Like we usually just keep this shit to ourselves. But if you say there's an alliance for it, I'm all about talking. I'm all about brainstorming at this point.
I mean, the main problem that I see, the main thing keeping this from happening is you've got like this robust monetary reform movement in this country, the Alliance for Just Money that's formed up. I mean, the answers are there, but the issue is that there's a disconnect. I mean, you've got like this really monetarily literate group in this country that doesn't really know anything about direct action or even like social media or marketing or advertising or PR or journalism. They know monetary reform really well.
Maybe we're actually
cross-disciplinary enough. Now you have the radical left, who they're really good at direct action, really good at social media, really good at grassroots shit, really good at getting a message across. But they don't have anything to say. They don't have the solution like the monetary reform community has. And the challenge for me
gotta be a bridge.
Creating a cross discipline. It's been hard.
Dude, let's start brainstorming on some of this shit. I'm down because that's what I live in a city that I can hear it out my window. Once every once in a while, they'll do it at this little corner right here, which is a pretty prominent area in Denver, and they'll just sit out there and they'll just disrupt everything, and we're just trying to get back, man, and that really fucks some people up. Some people that wouldn't go, they were walking down in that direction, they're not going to walk in that direction.
You're not messing up. You're not disrupting. I mean, yes, disruption does work. Disruption does change things, but you got to pick your target. You got to pick.
I'm following that book. They are not following that book.
They're not following the book.
This seems staged. This seems like it's manipulated by somebody else that's trying to create something. It's almost like they're just trying to get the photo ops so that the media gets the coverage so that they can present it to everybody who's not paying attention and not in New York, if you will. So that they can tell the story. And it just seems like a bullshit story. It seems like a bullshit story because they just do it every once in a while. They don't cause any trouble. They just disrupt shit for a little bit and then they move on to the next one and they just keep filming it. And it seems nonsensical. There's nothing they're demanding. There's nothing that they want. The chants are getting longer and longer. I don't understand. They've never presented it. And then when you know about the BLM shit, I don't know if you know who Susan Rosenberg is.
No.
Well, she was a domestic terrorist. It was part of the whole Weatherman shit.
Oh, Susan Rosenberg?
Yes.
No. I know Bernadine.
You said Susan Rosenberg? Yeah, no, still not.
No. Yeah, I mean, like the Weatherman.
I did a little video on her if you want to know. It's like real quick, but it's just an Australian. Yeah. I can load that up while you talk to me here. But
no. Yeah, we got to start winding down too, man. We can talk all.
Okay. Well, then fuck that. Let's.
The thing I want to tell you is I'm hosting a meeting. Monday, actually.
Monday?
8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's for mostly Alliance members, but it'd be good to have some people, outside people. I want to invite you to it too.
Okay.
I'll send you I have your email. I'll make sure I send you to it. But we're going to be talking about Twitter strategy, specifically for promoting the NEED Act and specifically with an eye to this demonstration we're doing I'm 17. So having you there would be awesome, man. You know a lot of this stuff already without even. It's cool that like it's always refreshing to me to meet someone who's aware of the same historical facts from a completely different perspective, who didn't even read this stuff, which is how I know I'm not making this up.
Right,
You know,
right.
like I come from this American Monetary Institute, Alliance for Just Money community, where I kind of got this monetary literacy from. But just to see that other people are getting this on their own without having to go to my group is really encouraging, because it's like this stuff speaks for itself to anyone who's actually looking for it, which unfortunately isn't enough people. So yeah, man, we'd love to have you join us if you're free on Monday.
And what I need is the validity of a group, so I'm not just some guy. Look, I'm not the only person that thinks this craziness.
Exactly. No, I mean, you're not crazy. Like, it'd be dope if you could read The Lost Science of Money. I mean, obviously not before Monday.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's I've already written that down on my get list for sure. But I just added poor people's for sure. You know,
read Lost Science of Money is the main thing.
Yeah, no, you've pumped that where I've already written that down, so I already have that officially on my list to get.
Poor people's movements, just check that shit out on Wikipedia, man. Don't get too deep into it.
Right,
it's great.
Yeah, and to me, that's something that I would like to have as a reference, because I really think that, you know, shit's about to shut down digitally. So a lot of these books I am gonna start, you know, making sure I have and like, you know, replenish and stuff like that, because I give a lot of books away. You know, and a lot of those books I've given away, like, you know, one of the only books that I was able to get back were like sacred geometry books. I just love having those books around.
That's cool, man. Yeah. I mean, your point about like where things are going to, I mean, like there's a finite timeline. I mean, that we have before the tactics at our disposal just aren't even effective anymore. Like there is a window on when direct action is possible, and we're getting. The scariest thing about coronavirus for me is like, whoa, we can't even engage in direct action anymore.
Then let's get to this, man, because I do want
But the good thing about Black Lives Matter for me, I mean, they actually prove that you can go out and demonstrate and protest without spikes going up. And I wouldn't be doing this rally with the Fed if it weren't for Black Lives Matter.
See, my concern, honestly, is that the protests are going to be controlled by them. That if real people, because like you're seeing this in Australia, I don't know if you see this, but in Australia they already have a mechanism that if you post some shit about orchestrating a march against this shit, like they'll shut you down before you even have it. You know what I'm saying? And they'll arrest you. They already have the laws in place. They already have the police in place. Everything's already in place where they're shutting you down completely. I don't know if you know anything about what's going on in Australia, but it is absolutely nuts. I think it's Melbourne and Victoria. I don't know if that's one and the same. I'm very illiterate. I'm very American, you know, education still. So
yeah, me too. Yeah.
So geography is still, you know, it's all of the places that I went to that I know, and most of that's Europe and Russia. So
it's not our fault. We're American.
yeah, exactly. I apologize. I think it's
me too.
It's like Victoria, Melbourne. I know Daniel Andrews is an asshole. That's all, that I do know. So I'll say that. But all right, so I know you're wanting to wind down. So I do want to find this extraordinary guy, and this is his little tidbit on it, man.
Let's check it.
For sure. Oh, that's why.
Always known as a very, very strong building.
I see why. This happens on live shows, I think. Oh, I did no. All right, here we go.
9/11, as we were told repeatedly these weeks and months after the attack, was the day that changed everything.
In the span of one devastating morning, America changed forever.
Good morning. America may never be the same, and this is why.
American life will change forever as a result of this attack.
Nothing will ever be the same again. Nothing will ever be quite the same again.
Life will never be quite the same.
These were no empty words. They were plain statements of fact. The world did change on that day. 9/11 was the carte blanche for a great reset, the institution of a new normal in international relations and domestic affairs. From the creation of the Department of Homeland Security and the militarization of the police to the multi-trillion-dollar wars of aggression to reshape the Middle East, our lives today are drastically different than they were before that fateful Tuesday in September 2001.
On September the 11th, enemies of freedom committed an act of war against our country.
If September the 11th hadn't happened, our assessment of the risk of allowing Saddam any possibility of him reconstituting his programs would not have been the same.
And feel free to chime in at any time.
Airport security will become a federal responsibility.
I don't understand how a sexual assault can be made a condition of my flying.
This is not considered a sexual assault.
It would be if you weren't the government.
The old fact sheet said the primary function of the FBI is law enforcement. That makes sense. That's what we grew up with. The new fact sheet says the primary function of the FBI is national security.
If you see something suspicious in the parking lot or in the store, say something immediately. Report suspicious activity to your local police or sheriff. If you need help, ask the Walmart manager for assistance.
What?
All of this was brought upon us in a
She said, ask the Walmart manager for assistance.
That's what she
in a
said.
different world.
Get the fuck. I'm like,
That's fascism, dog.
Freedom itself
But you just don't realize it.
is under attack.
The Obama administration's internal legal justification for assassinating U.S. citizens without charge has been revealed for the first time.
I don't know. If the president's going to kill these people, he needs to let them know. Some of the people who might be terrorists are people who are missing fingers. Some people have stains on their clothing. Some people have changed the color of their hair. Or people who might like to pay in cash. Or people who have 7 days of food on hand.
NYPD Commissioner Bill Bratton is warning that terrorists are using cell phone encryption and literally getting away with murder.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But nearly 2 decades later, 9/11 has gone from a touchstone event shaping all of the Western world's national security decisions to a fading cultural memory of a trauma that took place before the newest generation of high school graduates were even born. 9/11 is no longer a driving political issue. But, as if on cue, a new event has come along to throw the world into chaos. Once again, we are being told that the world has changed forever.
This is not normal. At least it wasn't until a few weeks ago, when everything we take for granted, everything moved just beyond our grasp.
As a global community, we've experienced a once-in-a-lifetime event that will shift and reshape our behaviors and perceptions for quite some time.
This will be the new normal.
They have
until
control
a
of
vaccine
everybody.
is developed.
Meaning the new normal could last for months, even years.
So a return to normal as we knew it is not on the cards in the near future.
And, once again, this is no empty rhetoric. Governments, businesses, and NGOs are now coordinating at the international level on a great reset to once again...
We haven't talked about the
reshape the world we are
WEF's
living in.
Great Reset. I meant to talk about that before this.
Look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
Oh my God.
It's a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call.
I'm doing a video on
It's
this.
imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our world.
All it means is more debt.
You can't
I'll
think
show you
of
all
it
of this
as
shit that I
sort of
got.
pushing a button and we're going back to the way things were. And the normal was a
He's
crisis.
in my video too, that
The
asshole.
normal was itself not working.
I think all Canadians understand that the restart of our economy needs to be green. It also needs to be equitable. It needs to be inclusive. What we're
Wow,
gonna
that sounds good though. That was the only nice thing. Whoa.
That's all bullshit though. This is how they sell it. Equity, that's what they're gonna sell it as. Equitable. And the other word that she said.
it includes wearing masks where
I
appropriate.
wrote it down.
Our new normal includes us knowing where this virus is each and every day, where we live, where we work,
I
where
just
we
wrote
want to
equitable.
travel.
In parts of Europe, immunity passports are being considered for people who are believed to be immune to the coronavirus.
This is all just
While
them
in
taking
China,
more control
some
of us.
cities have already implemented.
It is. I agree with that.
But this is all coordinated then. You have to then know that this is all planned.
An individual may move around outdoors.
Not necessarily. I don't agree with that. I don't agree that it's all planned.
They didn't get this lucky dude.
I think a lot of this is just sheer opportunity.
Then let's
Visible
listen.
impact that has been declared on COVID-19. In fact, the security imperatives imposed by this pandemic crisis are so similar to those imposed by the terror crisis that, in many cases, the new security screening tools that are being put into place to combat COVID-19 are openly acknowledged to be mere upgrades of screening tools deployed after 9/11.
Most people know Clear by going to the airport. It was born after 9/11. This is another crisis with a new component that's being born. Explain what this product is in terms of how it's going to work.
I always tell you.
Relating to COVID.
So you're right. Clear was born out of 9/11, and it was about a public-private partnership leveraging innovation to enhance homeland security and delight customers. And that was really the beginning of Screening 1.0. And just like screening was forever changed post 9/11, in a
Screening 1.0.
screening and public safety significantly shift, but this time it's beyond airports, right? It's sports stadium, it's retail, as Dana talked about, it's office buildings, it's restaurants. And so
Now they're going to be able to hold everything against you.
biometric secure platform, where it's always been about attaching your identity to your boarding pass, the airport, or your ticket to get into a sports stadium, or your credit card to buy a beer. And so now with the launch of Clear Health Pass, it's about attaching your identity to your COVID-related health insights for employers, for employees, for customers. Everybody wants to know that each other's safe to start to reopen businesses and get America moving.
Right. Yeah, the biotech that's existed for
Yeah.
now this is
So when you start to see that they started planning this shit a week after 9/11, you start to notice.
It is true that just like the
I think the tech has always been there. I mean, like again, like I think that they've always want to use this stuff. I think they're always kind of ready to go.
Right.
It's just that they don't always have. They need the opportunity. COVID just gave them the opportunity.
Individual.
I mean, like, the freaky thing about COVID too is that like I know like that the city where it supposedly started from. There's some military games going on there, like the military Olympics. Like one of the first patients was one of the athletes. I think she was a cyclist in the games that were going on there. So I mean, like there's definitely like some shady facts that need to be investigated with regard to COVID and the spread of that too. I mean, with regard to the industrial military complex as well. But yeah, I mean, like I definitely see where you're going. I think the only real disagreement we're having is that like this is all planned in advance. I don't think they saw COVID coming. I think now that it's here, I think they're reacting slowly, but this is what they'll capitalize off. It's just
I hear you.
The point about how the reaction. I mean, like the screening, the TSA similarities.
He hasn't made the case yet. That's all I got to say. Is like later on, like this is only a 20-minute video altogether, but I think we've already knocked down 10 minutes. But
yeah,
the whole second half is him doing that part. Is getting to the fact that this does seem very planned, like even to the fact that everything that's come out of who Judy Mikovits is, like all her shit came out of that Fort Detrick place, and Fort Detrick has been was leading the world on bioterrorism. Basically, they were the ones developing all of these things and right to functions and Ebola. Like Ebola never had a chance to become infectious to humans. Like they created that ability, and Judy Mikovits, clearly says that's what her work was doing. Like that they took it into the lab and they made it infectious to humans. That's what they were told to do. What she did, and so then when she blew the whistle on Fauci, they pretty much shut her down. Like they arrested her, they did all this other shit, but they didn't ever charge her with anything. They just eventually let her go. But
I mean, whether we could argue endlessly whether or not this is planned or whether it's just sort of opportunism. But I think the point that we agree on is it's definitely fucking happening. It's definitely not right. And we definitely got to do something about it. That's
all
where we're
the
definitely on the same page.
So you're all about action. You're all about that action, boss, as they say.
I don't
right?
even want to know. I don't even want to. I mean, like I do and I don't. Like, I mean, I don't even really want to know what happened anymore. I know it was fucked up. I just want to fix it.
Yeah.
You know, like
let's get
I'm
into
at that. I'm at that point. Like I don't doubt it, but like you can only go down that spiral so far as to how bad is this.
Okay, so this is where I disagree on your level. Like, I totally agree, and I have plenty of solutions, and I can have that discussion in a free form or any form that you want.
Yeah,
solutions. But a lot of people don't know the truth. They don't know what their government has said in the past. They don't know what their politicians. They don't know what their history is. They don't know the hypocrisy of what they're claiming. Like, there's a lot going on that we first need to uncover for everybody else. So
unfortunately, those fucking people are never gonna wake up.
Okay, so then let's just skip to the conversation.
Even if you save the world, like, I mean, like the thing is that like the NEET Act could get passed tomorrow, everything could get better, and those same fucking people will just thank God or something like that. They won't thank any of the people who actually got it done. They won't pay any attention. That's just how that's the nature of the game. I mean, like when you're creating movements, when you're creating change, obviously that Erica Chenoweth talk, it's only 3.5% of the population that you need in order for something to get toppled over. I mean, and like the rest of the time, the rest of the people, they just keep living their lives. They just keep doing what they're doing. They don't care. They don't notice.
I mean,
they're never gonna wake up.
They have to.
They don't. That's the beauty of all. That's the beauty of that talk that I learned.
Until we know how to grow food again, we have to. Period.
Oh, well, the stuff like that, yeah. But I mean, we have to. There's a lot of work. Everyone's got to work. Everyone's got to change. But in terms of like people knowing the truth, I mean, the truth is always out there. The truth is just right there for people. Getting people to care about the truth is just a different
animal
thing altogether.
God damn. That's a well put. That's another one, dude. Like you
can tell the truth all you want, but getting people to care about it isn't something you can force. Like that's just there's a point at which you're an anarchist. You know, it's like you can't get.
No, I am an anarchist, and the thing is, it's like, okay, so to me, okay, we're going to talk about solutions. We first have to identify.
Let me back up, because this is the one point at which I feel like to some level I can empathize. I can agree with people who just want to ignore it and just live their lives and be as happy as they can. And so, activism is almost kind of giving me the ability to understand it to a point. Like, I don't ignore any of this. You got to study it. You got to get exhaustive.
Right.
But just for me, in my personal pain threshold, like everyone has their limit as to how much truth they can stomach. And like, I've definitely reached my limit years ago.
Yeah,
like I can only handle so much more. I mean, like, this shit makes me want to kill myself. Like, what, you know, like I can take the red pill, but I need a green pill too. Like, I need to see the green, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Hey, hold on. Your mic went away.
Oh, let me get a little closer. But I mean, like, for me, it's like
your left hand, maybe.
Everyone's got their personal pain threshold, you know, like it's how much they can handle. And I know it's there. I know there's more to learn. I know I'm never going to know the full truth. Right. But the question is what do we do to get out of it? What do we do to make sure that shit like this never happens again? That's the real question. That's the most important question.
To me, I think that's foolish to think that, because, okay, so this is where if you want to talk about solutions, what are we going to talk about? Are we going to talk about killing, or are we going to talk about using the system that they've created? Because One way is like we literally have to identify anybody that's linked together in any of this and go out and literally kill them. Like literally kill them. Like kill those individuals, the families, like all like the way they did the Bolshevik revolution, the way they did the those oligarchs. Like we have to do that to them, to the people that we've identified that across the board, just people that are historians, people that are conspiracy, people that are into finance, people that are into the like they just love all this shit and love knowledge and are old enough to know or maybe young enough to care. I don't know what it is, you know, like but let's just say we all get like we have to either go kill them or take over their systems to the point where they have to deal with us.
The Need Act takes over their system to the point where they have to deal with us, so we don't have to kill them.
Okay, so then that's super coordinated. Like, have you ever seen the World Economic Forum and what they have going on?
I know. This is stuff I need to know more about.
Okay, so I'm doing.
But I mean, like the Need Act is only a national solution. It only works for the U.S. Like after you get that done, every other country has to get it done too.
Okay, so this thing is called the Strategic Intelligence, and it is a COVID action platform. It is an AI, and it is basically it came out almost months after. There's no way this shit was all just came up with and put into this form. But if you put in you can go to this website and you can put in your email and they give you access to this thing that basically just interconnects the world. Like you just click a thing that you can click COVID-19. It'll tell you everything that's connected and all the things that make it happen. And then you click United States, they'll tell you what they have the plan for the future. Like one of it is corporate governance, and it's really weird shit. And then you have China, and then you have you have every country, you have just everything, how it's all going to be interconnected. Like they've already planned this. It's all called the global reset, and they're just pushing this. Like right now, they're just going to really just change everything.
Every time I hear reset, all I hear is more debt.
No, this is eliminating all debt. This is their debt. This is their debt. They're eliminating it. They're going to make it impossible for you to even be a part of the system if you don't believe in the system. It's going to be social credit score on a whole new level. Like anything you want to do, you're going to need to really just abide by whatever the fuck they say. And what they're going to start doing, they're already unveiling this, is they're going to start paying everybody about $1,500 a month. And they're doing it. They're started in Germany. They're going to do it for 3 years. I think it's Germany, and they're going to pay everybody there $1,400 a month. They're just going to give them $1,400 a month. The government is.
Interesting.
And Yang all of a sudden started talking about that here.
Well, I mean, the
universal income is what the global reset's going to require. So they're going to get rid of a lot of people.
The universal income under our current monetary system only increases debt.
Of course.
It only increases inflation. It only increases our debt to the banks. So of course they would want to do that.
Yeah, every solution that's being postured is definitely a win for the elitist.
This is the other thing.
They're just elitist. They're people that think they should be better.
Like this is the thing about Foucault, where he points out that power isn't just repressive. Like they give you stuff too. They give you some bread. They give you some services. Power has to be positive too in order to keep people in line. There has to be some sort of reward, like.
That's why.
But the other thing that Foucault talks about in power, the thing he says is that like no system they built has ever been perfect. Every system that they build always has some crack in it. There's always some underbelly. There's always it's always some bullshit at the end of the day. Like of course the one guy in the Panopticon cannot look at what everyone's doing all at the same time. Always like. There's always that what Goffman would call the underlife of the public institution, where like the drugs are getting smuggled and like real life happens.
Right.
And that, I think to some point, like the technology is always going to get bad, but we'll find new. This these tactics that we have available to us now are growing shorter. Like there's a window on the ability for us to have conversations like these online and to reach a significant audience that's gonna see it, because they are shutting it down. They're limiting us. Even on Facebook, you can't even create an event page anymore for like a political rally without going through extra verification measures. And they shut down my Facebook pages before because I was giving away free weed. Obviously, you heard that.
Exactly.
So I mean, like, but we'll find new ways. There will be something
That's
else.
what we need. That's the solution. That where you want to talk about solution is, what are we going to do if the Internet of Things doesn't work out for humans?
And that's just it. Like when the internet's if the internet's completely controlled and locked down, we have to figure out something new. Like we're gonna have to go back to passenger pigeons or
Smoke
some shit.
signals,
Like,
pigeon flights, like what?
That's why it's important. We got to act now.
Exactly. And I think the first rebellious thing that you can do is grow food. Buy heirloom seeds, buy real seeds that will produce further on down the line. Don't buy GMO seeds because they only last for a year. They only have one fruit, and then it's
Good
done.
luck finding some land to grow that shit on. I mean, especially
yeah, exactly. So start
in New York City. Like, I mean, we got to take over the
make
monastery.
yourself useful, for God's sakes. Maybe do a couple push-ups in the morning.
Well, that you should be doing. I mean, that's just a given. You know, like you got to know how to fight. But like, I mean,
yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Like
yeah, I'm a pacifist, so this sucks for me. This is definitely not where I want to be. Like, I thought I was gonna be able to live my life how I wanted to, and then I die, and then all that shit happens. But this shit is happening in my lifetime.
Happening now. Yeah.
It sucks. So
it sucks.
now
It's gonna be like Mad Max up out here.
So all that shit that I was thinking of like me maybe falling in love and all this other shit ain't real. So like it's real.
But I mean, I think the point is though that I'm trying to make is like power. I mean, I think the other important point to make though too is like we have a limit on. There's a time frame on the tactics that we have available to us right now where they just won't be effective anymore. But the other thing I would argue too is that the system, in spite of all these plans, in spite of all this, the system is weak right now.
It is.
Like all this shit. I mean, from a martial arts perspective, like if you need a weapon, you're weak. You know what I mean? Like
only if we talk about this, only if we use these little systems that they're allowing us. There's only a small window because they already have all the laws in place. They already have all the laws in place. They already passed net neutrality. They already did everything they needed to do.
The Fed is ripe to be exposed right now. I mean, like they're printing more
money.
It
doesn't matter. They've already moved on to the next system. It's a biosecurity. Like they got everybody in their heads that bioterrorism and all this shit is real. And
that's what they're. I think that's what they're going to figure out from this. Like if they really had their shit together, they would have had that rolled out the day after like the pandemic. I mean, like that's where they're gonna go, but they're slow, they're stupid, they're sloppy.
All right,
now's the time to strike. Now's the time to get you to this meeting with the Alliance for Just Money.
No, I am definitely down for that, man.
Yeah,
definitely down for that.
But like, I mean, it's like if you're hearing this, you are the resistance.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm going to make a clip. I know we've gone long, but this is actually, this is a special. So, I kind of.
Yeah. No, this was fun. I mean, it's fun. It's not. I mean, it's fun in like a cathartic way. You're talking about something like 9/11. It feels good to cut through the bullshit and just like at least like what really happened.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I never thought I would have to be here, but this year's let me know that time is precious as well. And so I want to leave a legacy behind. I want to put my thoughts out, So like I wanted to write a book forever, and I was taking forever to write this book. So now I just want to really carve it up, in a visual sense right now for people to consume it. But I'm also now actually writing this shit down, So it's it's good. This is all very cathartic for me, and this is what I'll do. And hopefully I get to finish it and actually create a thought form. And then yeah, then I can die peacefully knowing that at least somebody may get this. If people they still know how to read.
Dying peacefully is the name of the game for us.
Exactly, that's all I want to do.
Is introducing the world to an altogether more abstract concept: biosecurity. The term biosecurity was injected into mainstream political discourse when the 2001 anthrax attacks linked bioterrorism to the global war on terror. Suddenly, biosecurity was a pressing national security threat, and an entire architecture of national and international legislation was introduced to institute procedures for implementing medical martial law. In the US, the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act was passed in multiple state
December
legislatures
21st, 2001.
to forcibly quarantine and even force vaccinate their populations in a declared public health emergency.
Dude, this is all
On
planned.
the international level, the World Health Organization adopted the International Health Regulations in 2005, obligating all 196 WHO member nations to recognize declared public health emergencies of international concern, like pandemic disease outbreaks, as a global threat requiring international cooperation. Some have even argued that the legislation is broad enough to allow organizations like NATO leeway to enter countries in the interest of controlling the outbreak. Again, the tie between this biosecurity paradigm and the war on terror paradigm is openly acknowledged. In a 2002 paper on the emerging biosecurity field, 2 U.S. environmental researchers noted the way that 9/11 had opened the door for biosecurity research and legislation. The events of September 11th and subsequent anthrax assaults have made U.S. policymakers and the public more aware of our vulnerability to organisms released with the intent to cause significant harm, they wrote. In 2010, the World Health Organization issued its own information note on biosecurity.
It was almost like 9/11 was a
saying that
distraction for
the
this other
overarching
shit.
goal of biosecurity is to prevent and or manage risks to life.
That's
and
why I
health.
think it's planned.
And echoing post 9/11 declarations about the need for global
I
cooperation.
think this is just something they're doing anyway.
This goal can
I mean, this is again something that Foucault talks about again. Like he
Wait,
talks about the model.
You make a big point here coming up.
What this predictably bland language obscures is the way that biosecurity is used to invoke emergency powers and install new security procedures. Just as the Homeland Security paradigm used the presumed threat of terrorism as an excuse to curtail civil liberties, so too does the biosecurity paradigm used presumed threats to public health.
This is Australia
as an excuse
right
to
now.
curtail civil liberties.
In Hangzhou, to enter a tower block, you need to have your temperature taken and registered. And you must have an app on your phone into which you input your name, temperature, recent travel, and ID number. The information generates a color code.
In Hangzhou, to go out of the community or to public activities, you need to have a green code. This green, yellow, or red code is automatically decided through the system. It uses big data to decide whether you've been to affected districts or come into contact with those people.
Chinese police officers are also seen in another disturbing video nailing in.
They just downloaded that shit onto our
door of
phones
an
too, by the
apartment
way.
With people inside who had just returned home from Wuhan. Afterwards, he's sticking a red sign beside the front door which reads, "The people in this house have just returned from Wuhan. Don't be in contact with them." The poor people inside were desperately screaming, "Open the door."
That's how you treat sick people. Oh.
Melbourne is in full lockdown tonight as historic stage 4 restrictions take effect, forcing entire industries and shopping precincts to close. Health officials say it's the only option to stop the second wave, and we'd be looking at 20,000 cases if we hadn't shut down.
All about that predictive.
What's this?
Ultrasound in an hour.
Yeah, she's pregnant, so. What's this about?
I have an ultrasound in an hour.
Let me finish and I'll explain. It's in relation to a Facebook post, in relation to a lockdown protest you put on for Saturday.
Yeah, and I wasn't breaking any laws by doing
You
that.
are actually, you are breaking all. That's why I'm arresting you in relation to
How can you arrest her? That's.
Police are preparing to launch their aerial arsenal as part of a crackdown on COVID rule breakers. High-powered drones will be used to find people not wearing masks and cars too far from home.
Dragonfly safety system uses standard
Yeah,
4K
it's global.
cameras to provide anonymized data.
They're just normalizing it everywhere.
Heart rate, respiratory.
Well, they seem so much more ahead of the game in Australia.
No, they're not, dude. This is all draconian, dude. You should. It's just because China is really close to, and New Zealand is where everybody is right now. New
I don't
Zealand.
disagree, but I mean, like the way that power works.
This is in the Philippines after the leader said we'll shoot
And
at
now it's no longer possible to protest anything because of COVID.
exactly. They don't want us being together. That's what this virus.
Protests,
Right.
whatever. You can't protest anything.
They first built a whole generation based on fear, which is what happened 20 years ago, which is why now they're doing it right now.
I mean, but this tactic is nothing new.
No.
This goes back to the plague-run city. I mean, Foucault talks about discipline and punish being the model of ideal city where everyone's quarantined, everyone's isolated, just like in like a prison cell, but in everyday life. I mean, what's new, what's scary about this is how invasive the technology is. The way the technology gets straight inside your body.
Right.
They're recording your vitals. You know, they know.
So they say.
Yeah,
because
I mean,
they know that the test is bullshit. Like all the tests that out there is supposed to test for this COVID-19 is bullshit. All of them are proven to be bullshit. They're not reliable. Yet we're using them, and not one of them. Not if you. I'm talking about the PCR tests are bullshit. They give you bullshit answers. The antibody tests are bullshit. They give you bullshit answers. And all the other ones are all bullshit.
I mean, the way you fight a pandemic,
the test of real science,
and the way you fight a pandemic isn't with police tactics; it's with free healthcare. You know, you don't invest in.
It's planned.
You don't invest into.
I just think it's fallen. I think I got a new mic today, everybody. Hopefully, I sound better. But it's so heavy that I have to get a new mic stand because it just keeps seeping down in it. Next thing I know, I'm just like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
man. But no, like, speaking of voices, I'm actually totally out of water. We've been going at it so long. My voice is starting to get dry here, but we got to start wrapping up. But I mean, like, it's definitely, we definitely agree on all the important points here. I mean, I don't think it's quite. I think you give them a little. In my opinion, I think you give them a little too much credit. Like they're a little.
I'm giving them credit. I'm saying that this is the possibility.
I don't doubt that they have the intentions. I don't doubt the malintent. I doubt that they're quite as capable, I think, as you think they're capable of. But we're splitting hairs here. I mean, the important point is that the shit is happening.
I'm wrong. I'm fine with being wrong because
but you're not. You're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong in the slightest.
I'm being cautious.
Right.
I'm saying, hey, I'm a concerned citizen. Do I get a say so in us paying attention to who the fuck our politicians are in bed with and what they're doing? Like, what's our foreign policy? Why are we giving these crazy Saudis all these weapons of war and Yemen and all this other shit? Like, what is our real intent in a lot of these things? Like, nobody's
not only that, but I'm not for that. I'm not for that. Quit doing that shit in my name. Like,
right. That's been my concern. That's why I haven't voted since I could when the 2000 shit happened. Because this shit is nuts. Like all this war shit. Like I'm not about that at all. So I'm not down with any of these people. And if they've perpetuated this system and they had to kill Paul Wellstone, I don't know if you know who Senator Paul Wellstone from Minnesota was, but that motherfucker was talking about all this shit and he was spitting truth right before he was all of a sudden killed in an airplane accident. So a lot of these people that they don't want, like John F. Kennedy Jr., who started a magazine called George, they end up dead. Unfortunately, the people that were on the good side always end up dead mysteriously. And it's either coincidence that you believe in or
Malcolm X, Fred Hampton. I mean, Joe Hill. I mean, all the way back. Yeah,
and even lesser known because like the people in 1985 in Philadelphia that were bombed, for leading their little neighborhood into some righteousness, and people in Tulsa that are now getting their due. But there's hundreds of those situations around.
This shit's real. This shit is all fucking real.
Yeah, like it's manipulated. I think
it's real. The assassinations, the conspiracies, the control, the power, it's all for real. And yeah, man. But I mean, I think, the thing like reading The Lost Science of Money, reading the Need Act, meeting other people who are fighting it. When I really start looking into The Lost Science of Money, really getting into the history of it, you still see all the violence, you still see all the shit, but like there's that certain absurdity to it all too. Like,
okay,
as scary as it is, it's still so stupid.
So I'm going to I'm gonna wind it down like you're asking for.
Yeah, we gotta stop.
I'm gonna ask you one question.
Let's hear it, man.
And it's a fun one, hopefully. If it was a conspiracy, what's your next step?
The Need Act, still the Need Act.
No. I'm saying you got to think on the bad people's side. So let's say there is a conspiracy and they've gotten it to this point. What do you do now to carry on your like what would you do? Let's just take it all in and be like,
if I was the villain, like on the side of the conspiracy,
on all this. And we're agreeing that it is a conspiracy.
I'd just be up in the strip club with my cocaine.
I'm not. No. They're already no. They're being accused of eating kids and scaring them to the point where they create something called the adrenochrome. So that going to the club and doing cocaine ain't gonna cut it. I'm talking about what.
Oh, I'm doing that shit. I'm doing all that shit.
Yeah, you're already assuming that's
what they're doing.
Breakfast, dog.
I think the next move is, all they're thinking about is what do we got to do next, like keep this going. Where's
shut down next? Like, okay, so they've
where's the next party town? Like New York is over. Like we've raped New York, we've raped America. We're done there. The question is, I think the question is like what countries are going to emerge out of all this? It's obviously going to be, the power is going to be shifting back east. It's going to be Russia. It's going to be, we'll see what happens with China. They're kind of, I think this is really fucked up their game. It's going to be South Korea. It's going to be
Belt and Road Initiative. You got to look that up. You got to look up the Belt and Road Initiative as soon as we get off.
I'm sure that's happening, but my understanding is that the trade war and now COVID has pretty much knocked China out. U.S., they've not only has China's production been fucked up, but their market, the U.S. market has collapsed. The U.S. is going to fall. China's going to fall. I see in the West,
China's not going to fall because they already have the backup plan of supplying all of the shit that they supplied to us to now India.
But this is the thing, though. Their plans backfire on them. Their plans, they think they're geniuses. Yes, they have plans.
I know. I hope.
But their plans backfire.
I like what you think. God damn it, dude. I would buy you another beer right now.
Shit doesn't. Their shit never quite works out as planned. There's always. Foucault talks about how there's always inertia. There's always resistance.
That way, huh?
There's real life. When the rubber hits the road, everyone's got a plan until they get smacked in the mouth. And that holds true for the enemy too. They still got shit they got to work with. And so COVID, I think it's thrown a wrench into what they were doing, and they got to figure out how to capitalize off it. But in terms of what's next, I'd be looking at where's the party going to move to next. Where do I make my money? Where are the slaves freshest? Where do they got the resources? Where's the next party going to be?
Right.
It's looking like maybe Canada, maybe Mexico, maybe South Korea, Russia. Putin's got a big hand in all this shit.
Yeah, they all do.
We'll see what happens.
What's the meeting called? The G20?
Yeah.
What do you think they do there?
God, I don't fucking know. Why are you asking me? I don't fucking know. No, man. So what's gonna happen next is where's the party gonna move to? That's it.
Man, I hope you can stay safe in New York. I fear for people that are in big cities. I fear for myself. I wish I wasn't in a big city. I wish I was a little.
If they want to fucking kill me, they know right where I'm gonna be this Thursday at 5 p.m. motherfuckers.
Honestly, if they wanted to kill me, that would be great. My concern is not death. My concern is something more.
You would want to count for something. You don't this. The scary thing is that boom, and the story just doesn't get out there, and you're just this fucking ghost in limbo. That's Like that's what you don't want.
Yeah, well, that's how I feel now. The way Facebook has treated me, because I used to be kind of popular on Facebook, you know, so I was
Me
kind
too.
of, and now I'm
Yeah.
not, and it kind of it's kind of crushed my little ego for sure.
Dude, I went from being on fucking like Fox and MSNBC, at least for a while, it was like 3 times a month. Then it
Yeah.
was down to like maybe once a month. Then it was like down to like maybe once a year. Now I just got like nothing. I mean, just like, ugh.
Yeah, no, it's crazy how much control they actually have over what gets said, what the narrative is. It seems like
that is scary.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like we've allowed them so much more control by giving it over to these perceived giants that just came out of nowhere. But when you look into them, they actually came out of the military. But I'm talking about like a Facebook, Apple,
Yeah.
Microsoft, Sun Systems, IBM,
All
and even-
military tech.
Yeah, these are exactly, and we trying to. And the way they just immediately like humanize these people with movies and things of that nature, so that we sympathize a lot more than we would. It just all seems really nefarious, and it seems to fall in more in the line that there is something more nefarious at play when dealing with when dealing with the circumstances that we're in. And okay, so if it is just, whatever they're saying and wear the mask and all that shit, I'm already doing the mask, like I have the beard. I don't think it's working, I think it's bullshit, but whatever, if I need to be in places, you see this little red dot here that came from wearing the mask, and I got a little zit and it never went away. Like, I'm wearing.
It's not showing up. I can't see it.
What's that?
It's not showing up. I can't see it.
I don't give a fuck for real, but
no.
And,
I hear what you're saying, though, man.
But it's like I'm wearing the mask when I'm out. I'm doing my part. But if I'm right, there's at least a conversation that we need to have. We don't have an exit plan from giving them all of this power, and I think that's nonsense. And we don't have our own people-owned communication system that we have. Everything runs through a corporation or the government. And now it's all interlinked, and I think that that's a us problem right now. And I think this ability for us to talk like this is not going to be forever, and not going to be for long.
No, I agree.
And so something that I always did was keep my shit tight to myself. I am now going to spend every last Sunday, being as loud as I can about a lot of this stuff that I really think is going on, but with smart people, and so they can put me in my place.
Dude, these talks have been giving me a boost, because honestly, I've been shouting this shit in front of the Fed for a few years now, and no one's been listening.
Which is pretty dope. So maybe I can do some work for you, and you can get some footage for me. And,
No, I mean that last clip definitely helped. I shared that out. I know I got at least 1 like on it.
It's tough, man. Like I'm telling you, I know
the thing is, never doubt that a small, thoughtful, committed group of citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has.
But you know what we need to do? So what I want to do with you and your alliance group is write a strategy for victory for us. And if you're down to do something like that, where these are the steps that we have to do, we have to create our own, whether it be our own search engine, whether it be our own controlled search engine, whether it be our own controlled network, where we have to have right now, while this system still exists, we have to have an ability to get into the courts to say, hey, we're allowed to have our own human-owned network that runs internet, and we need to be able to have it unencrypted, just our own shit where we run it, not the government, not anything that y'all regulate.
Some of that's a lot of that's over my head, man. I know my whole game is all about getting.
I need Thaddeus to come back in. I don't know where he is right now, but
what we need is an angry mob in front of the New York Federal Reserve. That's the main thing we need right now.
Okay, so they've banned travel. Now all of a sudden, let's say nobody else can travel anymore unless you pay whatever respects to the corporations that you need to.
Yeah.
What next? What is our next move as humans? Let's say they just unveil that tomorrow. What is our next move? I don't think we have anything like that. So if I want to talk about that.
Well, we got to start winding down big time.
No. That's how I'm ending it. Like,
yeah. That is
about that.
That is the conversation. No,
We
no
need,
doubt.
yeah, like let's have the conversation next about that. If you ever come back, I'm sure.
Well, let's talk about this plan for victory. Let's talk about that.
Well,
do a
it all
step-by-step.
rally at the Fed in New York. So if
Let's
you're
see how that goes. Let's see what happens.
okay. Well, if you offer everybody pot cookies like you did, or no, just straight pot.
Yeah.
Last time.
I'm not doing that again this time, unfortunately, just because Trump stimulus money didn't come through. I couldn't afford to do that.
All right.
But we still got some free pizza to give away.
Yeah, I did make a post with that as the caption.
Yeah.
Like free pizza.
And the really cool news is that I have this my little secret weapon I've got coming through is she's this artist and she's got these really great tapestries that she like floats around, and so even if we don't have a lot of people, we'll have some good art out there that should get some good visuals and get people to this will be a good one. I think we'll get some stuff started, and I think we'll be able to start.
You know, I need to link up with you, man, because like I think I have ties to this, and I can maybe digitize a lot of this stuff for you. You know,
absolutely, dude. I mean, like honestly, like some of the most important work with Occupy Wall Street didn't happen on the square at all. It happened with tons of armies of people like behind the scenes. I mean, there's so many unsung heroes.
I've always been a behind the scenes person myself. I felt compelled.
That's what we need. I mean, like we need people who can do the videography and edit stuff and like these shows. I mean, this is not my forte. I don't know how to do what you do. You know, like I know I've got my other game, and I've got this artist. Yeah. I've got an essay I've written too about how to start a movement, like based on how I saw Occupy actually start.
Right.
I might send that to you for you to check out.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. That's what I'm saying, man. I need to have a network of people that we know. If shit goes down, we need to have an address that we all are searching for the next 2 weeks. You know, that we group back up. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, just in case, like we don't have a plan. Like nobody has a plan in place. And I think at least if we get 20 to 60 to 100 people together where we know where the address is, where we all link up, if it's by a river, that we can fucking sustain ourselves for a little while.
If shit goes haywire out here for me, I'll be right in front of the Fed. If I'm unemployed, if there's some sort of attack, anything goes down, I'll be right in front of the Fed. Because that's the safest. You know that building is gonna be fucking fine. You know, ain't no plane hitting the Fed.
That's
like
well, what if they're done with New York? What if they're done? If they're resetting it, man, I don't think any old systems is where you want to be. I'm in Colorado because of this. I chose this place as my intermediary to get to South America. I think South America will be pretty much left alone. South America, Europe.
Yeah, I want to stay as close to the enemy as I can.
I think on that note. Do you have anything else to say besides September 17th?
What's that?
Do you have anything else to say besides September 17th?
September 17th. Let's see what happens. We'll take it from there, but we will get this done, man. We're gonna end this shit.
No.
What's that?
Free pot cookies or free pizza?
Just free pizza.
Free pizza.
Yeah, free pizza to Fed.
If you want to later in the week, y'all can get together and make some pot cookies, right?
Bring weed. I mean, bring weed.
Always bring weed.
Always bring weed to the Fed.
You know it's kind of weird here in Colorado. It's like because in Atlanta, if you showed up with some weed, oh shit, you got some weed. But out here, it's like it's so passe. Like you show with weed, it's like, that doesn't even want it. It's like, nah, keep your Newports. I got my own Newports. It's like it's all good. Well, anyway, man, I appreciate you joining me for this fucking long. I don't know what.
Dude, this has been great, man. I can't believe how long we've been going at it.
I know, but it's fucking, dude. I'm telling you, I could talk to you for hours. Like, I know we don't.
The only reason I got to stop is because I really need to get some water. I mean, that's really my limit. You've maxed out by.
That's good. I'm out of beer, so pretty soon I'll just get like thirsty myself and want to cry and cry. I think I usually cry. I don't know. What I usually do is I usually maintain throughout the day. I fall asleep and then I wake up And then I'll watch like little videos as I'm waking up, and then I'll watch anything sentimental and then just cry. Just any little thing just makes me cry. And then I feel good. And then I just, I man up, as they say.
You gotta keep going, dude. That's it. It's like vomiting. You gotta get it out.
Then you brush your teeth and keep it going. So nobody else knows that. So I'm gonna edit all that part out. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I
All
appreciate
right, Lou. Yo, always a pleasure, my man.
Yeah, for sure.
Big virtual hug. We'll do this again soon.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll definitely stay in touch.
All right, brother. Yo, one last hit and I'm out.
Excellent. Let's do you know the strain that you are smoking on?
Papaya.
I don't think I've ever grown that, but we'll see. And I think it's way past the time to think about all of this as a conspiracy theory. I think that this is definitely a conspiracy that we need to pay attention to. And that all starts with going back and looking at the history of it all. And it does make accusations. Like, don't let people dissuade you by the race of the people that you're making accusations onto, because none of that matters. Like, you love people of all races. It's not about that. They're using that shit to divide and conquer us. Like, they're using psychological warfare on such a high level that you need to just bypass all of that bullshit and just look at the raw facts and look at why we're in the situation we're in, where we're just about to give up so much security, so much of our sovereignty for stated security. Like we have to start asking some questions before we make these final submissions to this authority. Like, we have to ask, if this is what we really want. And I hope we make I definitely hope we make the right decisions on all of this. So, but that's the show. We're going to talk a little bit more about the history of the laws that were changed since September 11th and see what these guys have been up to. So hopefully we can get into that. But that's the show. Show love to the sponsors, Flickwick, shop.flickwick.com. You can use the promo code ACTJ for 20% off. If you dispute anything we said today, let me know. And if you say anything cool, I'll send you a free Flickwick. And we are the underdog, so don't forget to show love to all the affiliated show pages. Subscribe, like, follow KY5 Gaming, ACTJ, the Nameless Program. Visit TMI on Facebook to stay up to date on all of them. Take care and good night.